What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto arrives at Marineford Harem? If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments. At the Valley of the End here, we find two wounded warriors. One is a quite tall teen, though some would mistake him for an adult due to his feral side. He has long, spiky, sun-kissed hair with small bangs down the side of his face that shines throughout the barren wasteland that was once a beautiful land. He has three whisker-like markings on each side of his cheek that make him resemble the looks of a fox, and his bright blue eyes that, from time to time, change red and slitted. He is 62 feet tall and has a horrible orange jumpsuit on that is now ragged due to the battle that has taken place as he glares down at his opponent. This boy was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. His father is Minato Namikaze, and mother Kushina Uzumaki, as they were both feared throughout the land due to their overwhelming power that could rival the two-tailed beast. On the other side of the field, no one would care about except a pink-haired Sakura, one of Naruto's teammate or soon-to-be ex-teammate who is currently bleeding out with tears streaming down her face while staring at Naruto's opponent, who turns out to be Sasuke Uchiha. The last remaining man of his clan. He has a gray robe wrapped around his body and a purple snake-like belt that wraps around his waist. His hair, what jet black and in the shape of a duck's, but his eyes were in the Mangekyo sharing in form, and he was also glaring daggers at Naruto. "This is over, Sasuke. I'm never gonna let you finish Madara's work." Naruto coughed as he began going through hand signs that made Sasuke's eyes widen with slight fear as he began to back away slightly. "Stop it, Dobi, you're not thinking straight," he shouted as he went through hand signs with him. However, he stumbled when he heard Naruto call out his final move. "Huising Inga no Jutsu. Sacrificial Seal Jutsu," he shouted as he slammed his palms on the ground, and a small black hole began to form in front of him as Naruto and Sasuke were dragged into the black hole, as the area around them was left in complete silence, as the two ex-teammates were now nowhere to be seen, as the black hole was now gone, with Kakashi looking at the spot where the black hole once was, as a single tear went down his eye. "Somewhere nowhere. Kit, wake up, kid." Kurama the Kyuubi inside him shouted as Naruto slowly began to open his eyes. "Oh, shut it, fur ball. My head hurts enough as it is." Naruto moaned in pain as he looked around and noticed he was in some sort of void or limbo. As he looked around, he noticed the body parts scattered around the place as he raised an eyebrow. "Hey Kurama, how come we never ended up like that?" he said as he pointed at the head of Sasuke and looked that his eyes were still open. "Well, I had to do something that I figured you would be pissed off at me if I told you," Kurama said nervously. "Ooh, and what would that be?" he asked, demanded, while Kit calmed down. "I had no choice but to turn you into a Hanyo half-demon," Kurama said with a sad chuckle, expecting for Naruto to start shouting at him, but to his surprise Naruto looked happy. "Wow, really? That's so cool. Now I am a bit like you," Naruto said as he examined his body and noticed he had an orange fox tail and ears with white tips, and his whiskers also became a bit more dense to make him look more feral than before. His fangs had become a bit longer, and his body had grown a few more inches and more bulky, which made his orange suit look too tight for him to wear anymore. "Well, not that I'm complaining, Kurama. What can we do in a void? Or for that matter, how do we get out?" he asked as he entered his mindscape, which was no longer a sewer but a lush green forest, and he sees the fox lying down in his favorite place under a tree. "Well, Kit, we will be able to get out in maybe 1 to 3 days, and we will probably be heading to a complete different world, so in that time, I am going to help you in controlling your demon half," he says as he grins evilly at him with a mad crackling laugh, which caused Naruto to sweat drop while looking at the fox. "Geez, thanks, you old ass fox," Naruto grumbled as he sat down in a meditating position. "So how many tails will I have?" Asking this, Kurama looked at him and grinned. "Well, Kit, you will have every tail that I have, plus my chakra will come back to me once you have all 9. But to you, all 9 tails worth of my chakra will be stored in your one tail, and you might end up living as long as me too, hee. Naruto chuckled as he looked at Kurama. Well, at least you will stay with me, Kurama smiled back at him. Or grinned, depending on your point of view. Well, let's get started because this is going to be fun for me. He chuckles as Naruto stood up and begun to crack his bones in his body, indicating that he was ready. But if you looked closer at his face, you would be able to tell that he was a few shades paler. Let's do this then. Time skip 3 days. Naruto looked around as the area around him began to shake, and another black hole suddenly appeared beneath his feet and sucked him in. However, the last thing you heard him say was, "Ooh no, I'm going to get another headache." Unknown pirate ship. Was the sound of our blonde hero, who only a few moments ago came flying through the black hole which opened up in the sky, and now he is falling towards water which is as far as the eye can see except for one ship that is just a few moments ago. Kagebenshin no Jutsu, Naruto shouted as he was falling. A clone poofed into existence and grabbed Naruto and spun him round and threw him towards the ship, and he went flying through the deck of the ship. What the hell was that? One of the men on the ship shouted. This could be interesting. A man with 3 scars down his left eye, a black cape around his body and red hair said as he looked down in the hole with a smirk and raised eyebrow as he got up and began to walk towards the big hole in his ship. As he was walking towards the hole, he heard a groaning sound and saw bits of planks being thrown out of the hole as they seen a young adult rubbing the back of his head, as eyes slowly stood up to reveal his face to the people of the ship. Damn the hurt, he said as he rubbed the back of his head until he realized where he was and looked up at the red-haired man and chuckled a bit. Hee sorry about that, he said as he got out from the hole in his ship. That was until he heard the whole crew burst out in laughter and looked over to the guy in red hair again. What? He shouted, and then the red-haired man rubbed his eyes a bit from laughing. Oh, you're not normal, kid, he said, and chuckled a bit as Naruto's eyebrow twitched slightly at being called a kid. So he asked as he cracked his back. That made some of the other crew members cringe at, hey, what's your name, kid? He asked. That was until Naruto narrowed his eyes at him a bit and sighed and went into his mindscape for a moment. Hey Kerr, can we trust him? He asked as he looked at his soon-to-be lifetime friend who was currently rubbing a claw under his chin. Yeah, you can trust him, Kit. I don't sense any evil or ill intent coming from this man, though it kind of peeves me off that he has red hair. Naruto burst out laughing in his mindscape as he smiled towards the red head. Hey, cherry head name's Naruto Tilda. He hummed as he laughed as he seen the red-haired man's eyebrow twitch until he smirked back. Nice to meet you, Goldilocks. I am Shanks, though people who don't like me call me the pirate, red-haired Shanks, for my title. He laughed back and soon the both of them had their arms around each other. I like you, Naruto said as he chuckled. My mother had a similar nickname to you, only a lot more scary. He laughed as he seen Shanks shiver a bit. Oh, and what was her title? He asked out of curiosity and paled a bit when he saw Naruto's smirk. Well, she was known as Red Hot Habanero to her allies or friends, and to her enemies she was known as the Red Death. Naruto laughed more as he seen most of Shanks' crew shiver, and then he pointed towards Shanks. Hey, by the way, since you're a pirate, does that mean you are good or bad? He asked as he sat down on the ground. Shanks just shook his head as he went to the banister of the ship and laid back on it. Depends on what you mean, kid. There are 2 kinds of pirates, and if I'm guessing the one you're thinking of is the ones that pillage villages, kill and rape families and all that other stuff. He asked as all he got from Naruto was a nod. Well, we are the other kind, the kind that lurk the seas out of freedom and adventure, and mainly for the sole purpose of wanting to become the king of the pirates. He was going to continue until a sea king appeared from out of the water and about to attack the ship, but wasn't able to as Shanks' arm turned black and shiny as he flashed towards the creature and punched it in the cheek, sending it flying across the sea. After the battle with the giant fish, Naruto waked towards the captain and asked him and pointed towards his arm. Hey, what was that you used? He asked as Shanks turned towards the man as he chuckled a bit. Oh, that was Conqueror's haki. It goes black to show you have learned it. And when full mastered, you are able to punch a battleship, and it will most likely explode, and you would walk away without a scratch. He said with a laugh at his new friend's gob-smacked expression. Then he grinned at Shanks. Hey, if you can teach me all haki, I will teach you some of my tricks that will make devil fruits look like child's play. He smirked as he remembered Kurama telling him about most of the things on this world, like the two kinds of pirates, world government, warlords, and emperors, and he already knew Shanks was an emperor. This caught Shanks' attention with a raised eyebrow and a smirk back towards Naruto. Sure, Naruto, but Conqueror's haki is different from the others, as only 100 people per 10 years get haki, and I want you to show me what you mean by making devil fruits look like child's play. He said as he saw Naruto get in a stance that show his legs spread, and his arms curled into fists as he closed his eyes, and told Kurama to help with releasing half his ki, killing intent. As he did so, and to his surprise, he only saw Shanks buckle his legs a bit towards the pressure, and saw nearly all his crew wither out cold or on one knee. Sorry about that. I would have used all of it, but I would have killed some of your crew. Naruto then went to form a Rasen shuriken, and threw it towards the sea, that ended up creating a huge explosion that made some of the ancient weapons look like toys. As he wiped a bit of sweat from his forehead, he looked over to Shanks and smirked. Well, I can't teach you that, but there might be something that I can't teach you which is, in my opinion, much cooler. He chuckled as he formed a familiar hand sign, and 20 clones appeared from smoke. So what you think? He asked with a bit of hopefulness in his voice. After a while, Shanks managed to control his amazed face and look over to Naruto. There is definitely a high possibility that you will be able to learn haki within 3-4 years, but look on the bright side, we will party like no other crew has before. He shouted with pride in his words, which made Naruto sweat drop but smile. Sure, I'd love to Tilda. That was until Shanks blinked a bit and looked at Naruto. Hey, do you have anything planned after the 3 or 4 years training? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto looked over to him with a smile and said a simple nope. As he laughed as Shanks and his crew face vaulted, and after he regained his composure, he looked at Naruto seriously, which Naruto noticed, and turned serious also. I want you to join a kid which I would treat like my own, but us pirates all have to go our separate ways if we live on the sea, he said with a sad smile, as I thought about a certain green-haired barmaid. Anyway, I want you to look for a kid by the name of Luffy, and after the training, I want you to join his crew, and besides. He pulled out 2 posters. One was of Nami the cat burglar and Nico Robin the demon child, as he suddenly heard something he would never want or expect to hear. He heard Kurama in his mindscape get blown back by a nosebleed, so Naruto only muttered one word. Iro Fox. He laughed as he suddenly went through some hand signs to perform a complex summoning jutsu, and in a red poof of smoke, there lay a red-orange fox on his back with blood running down his nose. Well, since the fox seems to like them, and I'm going to stay here for a long time, might as well tell you my story. One long-ass story later. Here we find Naruto sitting in the kitchen with a big cup of sake and Shanks next to him, who had steam out of his ears with Yasop, and his right hand holding him back from finding Naruto's village, and burning it to the ground. Not that he would find it. Naruto could only smile his true smile at Shanks, and hugged him after a while, telling him thank you. After a while, we now see Shanks and Kurama in a corner, looking over some of the hottest pirates in the world, while on the outside, Naruto was grumbling things like Kerr being a pervert, but on the inside he was smiling that Kurama could finally be himself. Even if it was a huge pervert, as Naruto looked, and seen Yasop walking towards him as Naruto gave him a friendly wave. Hey Naruto, I got a favor to ask ya. He heard Yasop say as he looked over to him with a raised eyebrow to show him he was listening. Well, Roman 4 got a kid, his name is Usopp, and he's part of Luffy's crew, and well, I want you and Usopp to have these, he says, handing Naruto 2 sets of 2 revolvers. One set has your name inscribed, and the other has Usopp's. I want you to give him this too. He hands Naruto 18 letters. That's for all his birthdays. Naruto laughs a bit but nods and looks over to Shanks. His eye begins to twitch again, as he sees him and Kurama out cold on the deck with blood running down their noses and wanted posters scattered over their body. "Damn it, you two, get a hold of yourselves, you pervs." Naruto shouts with a big sweat drop as he waves off Yasop. "Sure, I'll give him these, just remind me when I leave because I am gonna be here a long time." He chuckles as he turns his attention back towards the captain, who is currently rubbing the blood off his nose. "Hey Shanks, do you know if we will be heading to any island anytime soon?" he asks as Shanks looks over to Naruto and nods. "Yes, we will be heading to Alabaster soon, and you might even see Luffy and get to know your soon-to-be captain, but you have to finish your training first." Shanks laughs as he begins walking towards the captain's quarters. Naruto turns towards the front of the ships and looks into the distance of the never-ending sea of blue, which in his opinion was beautiful. He then sat in a meditating position as he enters his mindscape to see Kurama, who had went back into his mindscape when he passed out due to blood loss. "Hey Kur, so this is gonna be a new adventure for the both of us, huh?" he asks as he opens a mental link with Kurama, who was still looking at the posters, and then looked over to Naruto with a smile. "Yup, me and you can finally act how we have always wanted to, without me having an Uchiha on my ass, and without the villagers on your ass. This is going to be a much more fun life for the both of us, so we might as well make the most of it since we are going to live forever." Kurama laughs as he goes back to looking at the posters until Naruto took the posters that caught his eye earlier. The first was Nami. She has bright orange hair that flows down to her waist, light skin, and a cute face that would make any model jealous of. And in the poster, you could only see she was wearing a bikini which showed of her impressive bust that made Naruto have a small nosebleed, and mentally curse Kurama and Jiraiya for infecting him with their pervert natures as he leaves his mindscape and lies back against the deck and stares at the clouds, which caused a certain ninja to sneeze as he gave of a happy sigh. A new journey, huh? This is going to be interesting. 3 weeks later. It has been 3 weeks since Naruto has landed on Shanks' ship, and he can happily say that being a pirate is the coolest thing since wanting to becoming Hokage, and he is looking forward to getting his first bounty. And he was surprised when he seen that Shanks was worth 850 million billy. And when Shanks told him about Luffy's dad's bounty, he ended up falling off the ship, although he didn't land in the water thanks to using his chakra. Much to the shock of the crew, but they just shrugged it off, saying that they have seen some shit, which made Naruto and Kurama nod their heads along with them. After all, they did end up fighting 3 types of gods, or close to that of a god. However, now we find Naruto walking along the water towards a desert island. As far as the island can see, a few days back, Shanks' ship docked at the island and told Naruto to stay here for a few days, and that they would come and pick him up. And Shanks ordered Naruto not to tell Luffy that he was here, and that he could only meet up with him if he was stronger, or at least learnt how to use his haki. So now here he is walking along a barren wasteland of sand. "Hey Kur, can you sense any life nearby?" Naruto asked as he walked like a zombie across the scorching sand. "Shut up, Kit, you asked me that 5 minuets ago and I told you to keep heading the way you are going. And besides, Luffy is in that direction, and you can test out your observation haki, which Shanks said he would teach you first." Kurama growled a bit as he mumbled stuff about impatient brat. Naruto could only nod and sigh in defeat. However, that was until he found a huge hole and suddenly fell in it. "Ahhhh." Naruto screamed as he fell down the dark hole, which seemed to go on for a while, until he came flying down into a large room that would remind most people of the Egyptians, and the candles suddenly lit around him. However, these were not ordinary candle, these were mysterious candles, because the flames were blue and had black tinges in them, which end up drawing Naruto in, and for some reason he was sure he could hear Kurama purr. Just thinking that sent shivers up Naruto's spine. As Naruto looked around the ancient room, he came across a big stone door which had some weird symbols of a fox. He thought, "Hey Kerr, you know anything about this?" He asked as he looked around the door and noticed two palm-like patterns on the door. "I don't. But I really like the feel of this power that is behind this door, and it's drawing us both in towards it, which makes me drool at the thought of it." Kurama giggled, which caused Naruto to freak out at the fox a bit. But Naruto could only nod along with the fox, as the power did make him shiver in delight and want to jump the power at a moment's notice, so he put his palms on the patterns. And after a few moments the door began to rumble and move as some of the dust and sand dropped off the door and caused Naruto to cough a bit and wave his hand around to clear the view and hide his face as he slowly walked inside the door, which led to a corridor. Although, as he began to walk down the hallway, the same blue flames lit up as he continued to walk down the hallway. Naruto came to a huge opening of the ancient place, which surprisingly looked a lot cleaner than the other parts of the place, as there was no dust or sand. However, something in the middle of the room caught his attention, which made Naruto's and Kurama's eyes widen comically that they nearly fell over, because in the middle of the room was a pedestal, and on that pedestal was what caught our adventurer's attention. This immediately made him begin to walk towards what was a devil fruit, and this devil fruit was exactly how Shanks had described them, and he said that they were meant to be 3x the size of an apple, or something like that. And he also said that all of the fruits have their own specific color, and this devil fruit was dark blue with black tips on the edges of the fruit. "Hey Kerr, I don't know about you, but this fruit looks tempting to eat, and I want to know why this fruit has been drawing us towards it," he says as he slowly picks up the fruit and examines the fruit. "Hey kid, I say you eat it. If I remember correctly, while I was searching through the book of devil fruits, that fruit right there is the Strong's fire logia there is, and is powerful enough to surpass white beard when used right," Kurama said, and almost drooled at the fruit as Naruto widened his eyes at it slightly. "Oh, so what fruit is it then?" he asked as he slowly began to lick the top of the fruit while having slight daydreams about the fruit's power. "It's called the Fokusufia no Mi, foxfire fruit," he says as he chuckles. "Just call it foxfire fruit for now, it's far too long for my liking," Kurama says as he watches Naruto burst out laughing for a second. "Oh, I should have known this would have attracted us, since you are a fox and I am currently half fox. It's only right that a foxfire, which has the name Fox in it, would attract us both." He laughs as he rubs his chin, wondering if he should pay the price for not being able to swim. However, that thought was thrown out the window after what Kurama says. "Hey Kit, don't worry about not being able to swim. You usually only walk on water anyways." He laughs as he watches Naruto swallow the giant fruit in one bite, as Kurama looked at Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "Feel any diff?" Kurama's words were cut off when Naruto's left hand was suddenly engulfed in blue flames, with black tips similar to the flames on the candles, which made Naruto feel a lot more warmer, and the flames just felt right to him as he began walking towards the exit to the tomb while playing around with his flames, and his tail unconsciously waggling with excitement and giggling a bit. "I can't wait to see the look on Shanks' face when he sees this." He laughs, and Kurama could only smirk at Naruto as he slowly exited the tomb and began to walk towards the place that Kurama told him before. However, this time, Naruto could feel a similar power to his clothes, by which made Naruto very curious about it, but he just shrugged it off and began to walk towards the city. The black-haired girl could only look in shock as he addressed the rest of the females present. "You see that? That was the intent, to kill. Remember it, for it's what you will need to feel for this profession. You need to kill, to murder, to tear and rip apart your target. No mercy. There is no such thing as honor in the life of a kunoichi." He barked to the crowd of female pubescents. Ignoring the wide eyes and scared eyes that he was getting from the girls, he continued on. "Now get your asses in that building there. It's time for the jutsu portion of the test, you walking disappointments. Only 6 of you little girls actually impressed me." The kunoichi hopefuls quickly got to work, lest they be barked and berated at by the extremely intimidating man in red. Man stayed outside, though. He had a clipboard in hand that he was writing on. It should be noted that he was writing at a speed that caused smoke to appear from the symbols he was writing on. When he was done, he walked into the building and handed the clipboard to an Aruna that was giving him a calculating glance. "Just how strong are you?" she asked as she took the clipboard from his hands, absently noting that the paper was really warm for some reason, in comparison to here or the rest of the world. "I don't know about the former, but I'm in the lower upper echelons for the latter," he replied, not even bothering to glance at the Chunin that was giving him a curious glance. "You grade harshly, I noticed." Naruto snorted. "I've seen the real world. The world beyond these protective walls. They are going to need a serious change in attitude if they want to survive out there. There's bigger dangers out there than simple missing nin, runaway biju, and natural disasters. There are monsters in human skin out there, and I've had my fair share of experience." The Chunin shaked her head at the man. "Believe you me, I know just how bad it can be. I couldn't take it, so I stuck to making sure that others could survive out there." The man said nothing to that. He simply went to wait outside of the academy building and joined the rest of the anxious parents, most of them giving curious glances to the man in red with the large sword stuck to his back. He still got weird glances from some of the Kunoichi clan heads that had gathered for their children. It was something about the man that seemed familiar to them. Naruto was a calm man. He could think a strategy on the fly. He could keep his head level even while being surrounded by blood, guts, intestines, and dismembered body parts, which he did at one point. He could keep a straight face even while witnessing a couple having right in front of him. Never again would he ask if he could snuggle with his parents in the middle of the night. But there was one thing that would always set the gears in his head running, make his instincts scream with terror, turn his blood colder than that one goddamn island that warlord son of a bitch sent him to, make shivers run down his spine that made him wonder why his spin hadn't broken into shards of ice, make him tremble in fear at the vague presence of such a creature, make him piss his pants in fear. Wait, there were two things. There was the lamia he had with 3 years back. He kinda snuck out while it was out cold on the firm mattress with all the fluffy covers and soft pillows. That thing scared the bejesus out of him. Didn't stop him from visiting it again to give it a lacrima phone and his phone number. Her name's Churi. She's a pretty nice gal once you get to know her. Moving on, the reason for his sudden panic attack. His elder sisters were right behind him, and they were pissed. Kyoko Namikaze Uzumaki, the heiress of the Namikaze clan. C-cup bust, long blonde hair set up in a French braid, and a standard Anbu uniform, size outfit with a jacket that doesn't show off their belly in case you're wondering. And Suki Uzumaki Namikaze, the heiress of the Uzumaki clan. C-cup bust and short red hair set up in a spiky style emulating her ma, and a standard Anbu uniform as well, both of hectochromatic eyes of blue and green. They are twins. Remember that. Both of them had their jackets open, showing some pretty nice cleavage. Naruto could practically feel the pure feminine rage coming off the two in waves and torrents of malicious intent. If there was one thing that the only male Uzumaki in all of existence feared more than the wrath of his mothers, it was the rage of his elder twin sisters. So he did the only thing a man in his position could do, puss out like a bitch. Fairy-like wings made of pink energy erupted from his back and began to beat furiously. "Fuck this shit, I'm gone," he yelled out as he took to the air. "Oh no you don't, mister," cried the twins at the same time. The both latched onto a leg each and tried to pull him down. Naruto valiantly tried to shake them off as he slowly rose higher and higher into the air, all the while shaking his legs like he had ants in his pants. And yes, he did have ants in his pants about 4 years ago. It was not a pleasant experience. Needless to say, Minako was amused when she looked out of her window, witnessing the scene of Naruto trying to throw off his clingy sisters that were always overprotective of him. With a sigh, Minako remembered when her son was the shy, adorable little kid that would hide behind his elder sisters when the bullies tried to hurt him. The hospital bill was enormous, and so was the headache that came with it. Kyoko and Suki were very much like a duo from Kumo. Oh God, writing bee has made me rhyme my rights. They are twins and practically never leave each other's side. They train together, fight together, sleep together, eat together, dated the same girl together. They were a package deal, inseparable, and were a practically unstoppable tag team that had a renowned reputation throughout the elemental nations. Hell, Naruto even heard rumors about them when he was out in Fior, the country closest to the elemental nations. It was then that Minako realized that Naruto had fairy wings attached to his back, flapping to give the man a higher altitude in the air. With a sigh, she sat back down. Manly skill set of awesome my ass, she muttered in reference to the dinner conversation from yesterday. To many citizens of Konohagakure, seeing the two esteemed Uzumaki and Namikaze heirs hanging off the waist of a literally flying man with a large sword on his back was something that caused many of them to have flashbacks to a time when Kushina was still in her prankster days. Let it never be said that they would forget the day of the raining fire chickens. So fucking delicious. Get off me, you two. We don't wanna, the two of them said in a childish voice akin to that of a whining child. Come on. It was only 13 years. 13 years of crying and sadness while you were gone. Oi, no trying to guilt trip me, now get off already, you two are making a scene. No, you're going to take our hugs and be tied up in the house never to leave again. Suki shouted as her hair went into 9 strands of tails, all the while in the air. It's a dangerous world out there, Oni-chan. We only want to protect you. Kyoko added, her braided hair snaking up and coiling itself around Naruto's waist. I have fucking fairy wings flapping from my back. Your arguments are invalid. Just let us tie you down so that you can never leave us again. To say that the people of Konohagakure no Sato were amused would be the understatement of the year, especially to the laughing forms of Eiko and Mithra, who were back at the academy with their newly obtained headbands attached to their heads. Aruna, however, was standing in the doorway of the academy entrance smirking at the scene in the air above her and everyone standing in the academy courtyard. Naruto was pissed. He had accepted this. However, it didn't make it any less annoying. He knew that his sisters would react this way. They always were a little overzealous with their protective habits. They would always sleep with their beloved little brother after he came to them instead of their parents. They never let go of him after that. Every time he went out, one of the two would be shadowing him. After he had gotten bullied that one time, they would always stick by his side. It got to the point that they would leave a shadow clone at the academy just so that they would be able to stay by his side. Not that he minded. Having two big sisters that he had a crush on staying with him everywhere he went was nice. Being protected by said big sisters, that was the added bonus. It was hard for him to leave them, more so than his parents, to go out into the world in order to become stronger. While out there in the ruins of Yulia City, Naruto had given up on his childish crush when he had finished reading the second part of Luke Von Faber's journal, while he admired his elder sisters by 2 years. Drive to protect him, to go so far as to keep him as nothing but a prisoner. But now he found their dedication an annoyance. So with hardened eyes, he glided off into the direction of the nearest training ground, all the while trying to shake off his dear sisters. They never let go. It would seem that he was going to have to do this the hard way. Training Ground 27 was a training ground designed to look like a pondish area. It was a forested area with a clearing in the center. However, 90% of the clearing was actually a small lake. In the center of the lake was a strip of land shaped like that of a circle. It was there that Naruto grabbed both of his sisters' heads, startling them, and threw them off of his person as he was 10 feet in the air. The twins flipped in the air and landed on the water surrounding the circle. The two were wide-eyed as their little brother landed on the circle of land with hard eyes. When his sisters got back onto their own 2 feet, he made a simple gesture. It was a simple one, a universal symbol for come at me. Suki almost wanted to laugh. Their little brother was challenging the two of them to a duel. Well, if his come-at-me gesture was anything to go by, then he actually thought that he had a chance against the two of them. And so, with a simple nod to their respective twin, the two of them dashed forward using the speed of a shinobi to take down their younger sibling as fast as they could. Naruto hunched forward as Suki came at him from the front, her hand going to the tanto on her back. She flipped in midair and swung at the man in red, her intention clearly to maim. After all, her brother can't get away from her if he was too injured to do so, and nothing was faster than a shinobi, so all was good right. Well, to Suki's surprise, her little brother simply grabbed her tanto with his hand, stopping her dead in her tracks. "Suki, Suki, Suki, oh, and you too, Kyoko," he began as a grin appeared on his features. "You're going to have to do better than that," he roared as he swung the tanto to the side, the owner of the weapon still clinging onto it and barreling right into Kyoko, who was sneaking up behind her brother so as to perform a checkmate. A tag maneuver the twins did. One goes to the front and distracts the target, while the other sneaks up from behind. Simple and effective. When the twins crashed into each other, they were sent sprawling onto the watery surface, using chakra subconsciously to stay on the surface of the aqua surface. When the two got up, they gave a look to each other. "We're going with that combo," asked Kyoko. "We are. Our adorable little brother needs to learn his place," answered Suki. "Well, he's not really adorable like he was all those years ago. I'd say he's more on the lines of a gruff handsomeness," Kyoko pointed out with a finger on her chin, a thoughtful look crossing her face. "Well, you definitely have that right. I miss our adorable little brother," Suki responded with a pout. Naruto, however, was growing impatient. "This is a fight, you know. We're supposed to be trying to maim and kill each other here," he yelled out to his two elder sisters. "But we don't want to kill you, just maim you, Oni-chan." "How long do I have to say it? Stop calling me that ridiculous name. I fucking hate honorifics, just fucking fight already," he roared out, his body in a "come at me bro" pose, its message clear. He wanted a challenge. A dark look found its way onto the twin sisters' faces, both of them. They had never heard their little brother curse or yell at them in such a way. They were used to "help me, play with me," and "I had a nightmare." They had never been told to shut up and fight him. "Watch your language and let us maim you so we can keep you safe in our home," they shouted as they began to flash through hand seals together, water visibly rising from the force of their outrage. Naruto could only sweat drop at their choice of wording. "So they're going to hurt me and probably cripple me for life, just to keep me in the house. That has to be stupider than that Bobobo guy I ran into a while back." Let's just say that that was one encounter that had forever scared Naruto, and leave it at that. The twins had finished their hand seals and had begun to launch their jutsu. All that was left was to say the name and the technique would be whole. Water lighting release, aquatic thunder hydra. Around the two heiresses, water flowed up at a rapid pace. Practically the entire small lake was made to be the medium for the technique, as 9 torrents of water shaped into 9 dragon heads of destructive power. Electricity coursing through the entirety of all the dragon heads, the water acting as the body for the electrical charges to flow through with little to no resistance. Naruto merely raised an eyebrow at the technique. It was a collaboration jutsu that had to take a shitload of chakra, and judging by the panting forms of his elder sisters behind the thunder hydra, it did. With a mighty roar, the water beast thundered at Naruto, its malicious intent to harm him clearly visible. The man simply grinned as he grasped the handle of the sword on his back. Naruto brought his greatsword off of the magnet that held it onto his back. He brought the sword to his front, holding the handle with both of his hands. The steel of the blade visibly darkened a color black than the silver sheen of the blade as Naruto dug his feet into the ground. The man's knees bended to give the man more power for when he inevitably swinged his mighty blade. As the 9 heads approached, Naruto simply grinned as he thrust his blade forward for a piercing attack, white light coalescing around the tip of the blade and forming a spear of white shining light. The sword met the 9 hydra heads all at once as water splashed about and the landscape visibly rocked. Arcane art, light spear cannon. Naruto shouted as his blade pierced the water and thunder combination jutsu created by his elder sisters, his sword acting as a shield from the technique. The 9 heads split themselves upon the tip of the blade, where the white light had formed into a spear, the remains of the splitted heads jutting in all directions like a geyser as Naruto ran forward, his blade held in both hands in front of him as he charged through the collaboration jutsu. Eventually, Naruto made it the water hydra technique, and was floating on the surface of the water thanks to his pink fairy wings that had sprouted from his back once again. The 2 sisters, still in shock, were too late to react when Naruto was already in motion. Swinging his sword with the flat of his blade, he hit Suki in the chest, sending her flying into a tree, which caused a coconut to fall out of said tree and land on her head, completely and utterly knocked out cold. Naruto immediately turned around, not even trying to see if Suki was still conscious, and swung his blade in an overhead arc toward Kyoko. The Namikaze heiress barely managed to unseal a kunai from a seal on her fingertip and block her aggressor's blade. Her knees buckled under the sheer power and weight of the swing from her opponent. Suki acted quickly, substituting with a nearby log in order to get away from her, now to her eyes, powerful younger brother. As Naruto smashed the log with his sword, Suki began to hide in the trees in order to but time to formulate a plan of action against Naruto. She was honestly not expecting this. Sure, she obviously knew her brother could defend himself judging by the muscles and the sword on his back. But she never expected for him to be able to knock Kyoko out and push her to exhaustion. Never mind that the 2 of them used a jutsu that was chakra taxing even for an Uzumaki. Naruto floated in the air, his wings flapping softly as he cupped his ear with his hand. He stayed like that for a while. To Suki, the observer in the trees, it was obvious he was trying to find her by way of sound, so she obliged him. She reached into her back kunai pouch, the one hanging off left leg, and grabbed an explosive note. She lit it up with a small application of chakra and hurled it off into the distance. The distracting explosion worked. Naruto was put on guard. He grasped his blade with both of his hands and held the blade in front of him. While the Albert style was one that focused on a one-hand sword style with mixed martial arts thrown in, Naruto tended to use his own blending of the sword style, switching from pure swordsmanship to pure martial arts, and on a few occasions he actually used the one-handed sword style of the Alberts. Suki jumped from tree to tree as silently as she could, taking care to not set her brother off as she cast a subtle genjutsu on him. The genjutsu in question was one that worked off the recipient's nerves, increasing stress and battle nerves to make it more likely that the prey will slip up. Naruto stood there in the air, twitching every now and then, coming to the quick conclusion that he was under a genjutsu of sorts. It would explain why he was so worked up over the fight and why he was sweating so much. Having fought enough illusion specialist mages in his tenure in Fior had made him aware of his situation. He simply shifted his sword to one hand and pricked his hand on the blade itself to bring himself out of the genjutsu that he was in. It was too late, however, as Suki was already behind him. Surprised by the fact that he didn't see her coming, he was too late to react as his elder sister wrapped her arms around him and bound him together with the Uzumaki adamantine sealing chains. She then began to spin around as the 2 descended to the ground. Naruto's struggle against the chains were for naught as his sister broke off just before the impact with the circular landmass. And what a mighty crash it was. Naruto wasn't buried beneath the land like so many other victims of the frontal lotus, but rather he was smashed into the very earth itself. As such, his form was slightly broken and in a lot of pain. Suki landed on her feet like a cat just as her brother's sword landed pointy side down beside his crumpled form. Her smirk soon became a frown, however, when she saw her brother slowly rise up. He grabbed his sword and heaved it so it was lying against his shoulder. He slammed his free fist into the ground, causing a strange magical circle to appear around him. Arcane art, guardian field. He roared. his bruises and scratches from the hold the spiked chains had on him visibly healing before Suki's eyes. The circle soon disappeared. Naruto slowly stood up, Suki too shocked by what she saw to do anything. The only male Uzumaki/Namikaze looked at his sister with a grin. "Not bad. I've had worse done to me, but that was a pretty good move." He laughed out, and then his eyes took a dangerous shine. "But now it's my turn." With that ominous statement said, Naruto grabbed the handle of his blade with both of his hands. His knees bent for added thrusting power as he pulled his sword back, the blade level with his shoulder blades, in a position that looked like the stage before a thrust. "Radiant Dragon!" the man cried out as he thrust his blade forward. Twin streams of light erupted from the blade, crisscrossing and intersecting together like DNA as they merged into one sharp arrowhead that flied towards Suki, who was still recovering from the frontal lotus that she pulled off. The Kunoichi didn't even try to block or substitute to get out of the way of the shining projectile. She simply tried to dodge to the side to get out of the way. Key word being tried here. She got out of the way, but the technique scrapped against the side of her stomach, drawing blood. The girl was tired. Having used a chakra-intensive jutsu, and while coupled with the fact that her brother was still fine and dandy after having tacked a dangerous double-edged taijutsu maneuver, made Suki realize that she and her sister had severely underestimated their brother. And now she was slightly wounded, a recipe for disaster if she continued. If the two of them had tried to fight the battle like it was a mission target, working him down slowly using carefully calculated techniques and tag-team maneuvers, then they probably would have won. But they had rushed headlong into the fight, not believing that their weak little brother would put up a fight. She was too drained to see Naruto rush up to her and deliver a powerful uppercut to her person. While she was in the air, her brother did a backflip and smashed his foot into her stomach hard enough to make spittle flow from her mouth, slamming her back to the ground. Her brother landed with his back towards her, his sword resting on his shoulder as he gave her a simple pointed look. "Not bad. But next, don't underestimate me, big sis. It's kinda embarrassing to see the girl who shoved a bully up another kid's ass to protect me broken on the ground before my eyes," he simply said as he walked over to Suki, a small smile on his face. The Namikaze heiress was too flabbergasted to do anything but refuse the hand that was helping her up. "How?" she muttered, catching the attention of her brother. "How did you get to be so strong?" she asked. Her voice a whisper in the winds of the world. A breeze flowed through the clearing, shacking the grass and ruffling the leaves in the trees, stirring up the water in the lake as birds flew overhead. "I simply have something worthy to protect," he stated, his voice carrying out into the clearing. Reaching the stirring body of the Uzumaki heiress, he stood still in the middle of the clearing, the winds picking making his red coat flutter as the breeze flowed over him. He pointed to the trees, "The village I love." He pointed to the birds in the sky, not even taking his eyes off of Suki, "The animals that live in it." He looked to the sky, "The land I was born into." He gestured with his free hand to the area around them, "The beauty of my home." He pointed to the direction of the village, a smile present on his face, "The village that was always gives its smiles to me." And then he gazed at Suki and Kyoko, who were now standing side by side. "But do you want to know the reason I left to become stronger?" Both girls nodded, too enraptured by his monologue to speak up. The male Uzumaki humbly put his sword on his back, the magnet strapping it to his person. He walked calmly towards his elder sisters. He then put one hand on one of their shoulders. "It's because I loved my family too much to be weak." The girls smiled and hugged him. He hugged them back, strongly I might add, like he would never be able to hold them ever again. "I missed you too, you know," he whispered. "We did too," they replied as the hugged back even harder. The only male of his bloodline could only sweat drop. "How the hell do you two still do that?" "Trade secret Oni-chan," they replied in sing-song. "Godamnit, how many times do I have to tell you stop calling me that?" "We're never going to stop calling you that," they replied, hugging even harder. as if to try and give their little brother death by hug. "Stop calling me that. It's an annoying nickname to call me and I hate it," he yelled out as he tried valiantly to escape the crushing hold his sisters were giving him. "You never told us that when you were still 4, came the overly cheerful reply. "That's because back then I used to have a childish crush on the two of you." "Well, we want that crush to come back. That way we all share the same bed and—" "I don't want to hear it, you two. Let me go already. Mithra and Aiko have already graduated. I need to take them back to the house for dinner." "No, not until you confess your love for us. And then we can get on to planning the wedding and—" "You two are fucking delusional." It would continue on like this for next few hours. Eventually, Minako and Kushina would come across the scene of Naruto trying to console his crying elder sisters over the fact that he would not be sharing a bed with the two of them for fear of them molesting him in the middle of the night. Minako was highly amused. Kushina was not. "This jungle is too damn similar to the forest of death back home," muttered a 14-year-old Naruto as he used his ground-cracking strength to leap from branch to branch, the sheer size of the trees themselves making it so that he had no problem actually landing on one and going to the next. The trees were simply humongous, twice the size of a regular couch, and curved every which way in that. As he flipped from one branch to another, a volley of arrows with a heart-shaped stone point crashed and pulverized the spot he was at originally. Naruto did not bother with looking back at his pursuers. If they were firing arrows, then he was no closer to losing him than he was before. He was impressed with the size of the wildlife, though. Not every day he gets to cut a giant boar to pieces and devour the whole thing over a campfire, although he was less than pleased with the locales. "Cease with your running. You cannot escape from the island. Surrender to us and let us take you in," came a shout from a feminine voice behind the crimson blonde. Naruto actually obliged with that order, stopping his tree leaping on the ground. Turning around, he had to look up to see his pursuers standing on a large curved branch on the high ground, the lush moss and plant life covering what should be just tree bark in a green covering. His pursuers were women, beautiful women in leather bikini outfits, if they bothered to wear clothes at all. One was topless, another was actually naked. Naruto ignored them all and stared into the eyes of the leader of huntresses, showing that he was giving her his full, undivided attention. She smirked at him when she saw that he had stopped. "So you're giving up? A shame. I was beginning to enjoy our little chase, although I am curious." Naruto made no move other than to put his sword hand on the handle of the blade on his back, his knees bending in anticipation for combat. The other hunter girls tensed in preparation, all 16 of them pointing locked arrows at him from their higher ground. "Why is it that, when we executed the men on that merchant ship you were on, you didn't even bat an eye at us? Almost all of the men that see us act like the pigs they are, but you didn't. And I want to know what quality about made you like that," she stated while knocking an arrow into her bow. "I was born and raised in the elemental nations, the continent of Kunoichi. I had 2 older sisters and I literally have 2 mothers. I only ever saw 2 other men in my village, the rest were women. And considering I was constantly dragged into the woman's side of the hot spring, and a multitude of other experiences that exposed me to the female body, I'm pretty much desensitized to female nudity. I'm more comfortable around women than I am men," the crimson blonde teenager explained. The leader of the hunt, as well as all the other women present, blinked owlishly at that statement. They were expecting many things, but that one was surprisingly unexpected and soundly logical. So he had 2 sisters, grew up in a village with 99% women, had a lot of skinship with them, and had 2 mothers. Wait, what? 2 mothers? How the hell did that happen? The leader hunter blurted out. The tension being slightly removed with that admission, Naruto eased up on his stance, in turn causing the other women present to do the same. "Well, there's kinda a technique to allow a woman to reproduce with another woman in the elemental nations. It's a closely guarded secret though, so don't get your hopes up." The huntress bit her lip, weighing her options. On one hand, the boy wasn't really that bad compared to the men from the ship, and he is being rather honest with them. On the other, he is a male, and the law of the island specifically stated that no male was allowed on the island. But then again, he was from a continent where the female-to-male ration was pretty much 99:1. She would take the risk. He may be able to prove an asset and net them some relations with this Kunoichi continent. Male, how would you like to come to the village of the island Amazon Lily? Asked the hunter as she put down her bow, while signaling the others to do the same. And like that, Naruto dropped his grip on his sword's handle. Meh, sure, he said with a neutral expression, and then it turned into a frown, but on one condition. The huntress's eyes narrowed. And what condition would that be? She asked frostily. Here she was offering a once-in-a-lifetime sight to a man, and he had the gall to ask her of something. Could I have something to cover myself with? Not that I mind being in the buff, but it's quite chilly out here. Oh, well, that was understandable. It was the winter season after all, despite it normally being warm throughout the calm belt. It was slightly chilly today for some reason. And like that, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was the first ever man to walk into the village of Amazon Lily. The very same village he would spend a year and a half at before leaving for the magic land of Fjord despite the protests of the island's inhabitants. So you mean there is a literal highway in hell called Route 666? And that you escaped hell by riding a motorcycle through it while dodging hordes of different demons and monsters? Asked an incredulous Anko as she fiddled with a kunai, her elbow on the table of the establishment. This is probably the 5th time I've told this story, and yes, there is a literal highway to hell and back called Route 666. Was the curt reply from the crimson-blonde swordsman as juggled 3 balls with one hand lazily. Do you still have the motorcycle thing? 'Cause a metal machine with a silver human skull at the front of it sounds really awesome to have, she said with a grin, sparkles dancing in her eyes as she threw the kunai behind her carelessly, eliciting a shriek from the girl whom had her skirt suddenly fall off of her. Naruto nodded as he examined his great sword for any chips or scratches on the blade. There were none, the perks of having your sword enhanced with magic to be super-duper durable. Yet I still have the motorcycle from hell. The only problem is that it uses rage as fuel, and I'm a pretty tame guy. You kinda have to try to piss me off, he said offhandedly. That put a happy smile on Anko's face. So you have to have a murder boner to drive the thing. Sounds like my kinda transportation. Naruto chuckled as he resheathed his impressive blade. I'll be sure to grab you when I get that pissed off at something. Maybe we could go hunting for a certain snake. Suddenly he found Anko's hand snaking down his chest, fondling his well-earned muscles that genetics may or may not have played a part in. The point is he is really buff and ripped through 13 years of hard work and training. If that's your idea of a date, then you're warming your way into this woman's heart, she whispered into his ear. Not even fazed by the why, Naruto only chuckled under his breath. I was earnest there, you know. I heard that she has the Kusanagi. And I kinda want to see how good she would be with that blade if she has even earned the right to use it. Plus it would allow us to get rid of a village traitor, he explained with a straight face. Anko was suddenly sitting back next to him, pouting adorably as she crossed her arms. And here I thought that you wanted to help little old me in mutilating the bitch, she said childishly as crocodile tears fell from her eyes. Naruto simply started to pet her on the head while nodding sagely. An action that made the scene a rather surreal sight, but was just another afternoon in the life of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Strike, swipe, sweep, leap backwards, lunge, spin, slash, rising diagonal swing, descending axe swing, rising leap, ascending slash, falling high kick, landing spin, slash, leap backwards, windmill crash strike. Rinse and repeat, but add more strikes and swipes each time, again and again. This was the cycle by which Naruto swung his sword around. Normally such an exercise wouldn't tire him out, but he had been going at it for the past 4 hours. Sweat glistened off of his shirtless, muscular body as he worked overtime to sharpen his sword swings. He didn't ask for a training partner simply because the first time he did, He broke the cat-masked Anbu's sword with but a simple swing when she tried to deflect, not parry, the slash. Of course it was probably because the Uzumaki Namikaze male didn't know how to hold back or knew the meaning of restraint. He at least found kinship in those two kunoichi in spandex. Now those two knew how to train, above and beyond the limits of possibilities. Tying boulders to your wrists and ankles while climbing a cliff face, that's the kind of stuff you find on the Grand Line. It was a nice time joining them during their 3-hour-long morning jog. Although he honestly couldn't understand what the point of the green spandex was, but he did understand the shouts about the springtime of youth. He met a similar man during his time on the Grand Line, maybe a distant family member. Naruto stopped and stabbed his sword point down into the earth, a dull shake rocking the area from the impact of the heavy training sword crashing through the earth. Naruto stretched his body as a groan escaped his lips. He then stopped and turned around, landing his gaze on a tree behind him. "You can come out now. I know you've been watching me," he said gruffly as he continued to stretch out his aching and protesting muscles. From behind the tree walked out the form of Satsuki Uchiha. The Uchiha heiress had short ebony black hair tied up into a bun that doubled as a ponytail, essentially looking like a round ball of black hair that ended in a long river of hair. Although the river part was cut short, she wore a simple blue shirt with white cloth-like armguard things on her arms. She wore simple white shorts and blue shinobi sandals. Her headband was on her forehead with 2 black bangs of hair in perfect symmetry on either side of the metal plate. Naruto raised an eyebrow, so the Uchiha heiress was stalking him now. Just great, he had enough of those from his travels around the world. "How do you know my brother?" she rudely demanded, a scowl across from face as she haughtily crossed her arms. "Oh, actually that's a much better reason to watch him work out." But she was being a rude little thing. May as well make it hard for her. Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders, bringing to attention the chest muscles on his body as well as the scars littering his body. "He's a guy I met on the Grand Line. Pretty damn good with them firearms." "Firearms?" He set his arms on fire again. The 13-year-old asked incredulously, an exasperated look forming on her face. Again. While he did see Itachi do some pretty weird stuff with a straight face, he didn't think that he had set his arms on fire when he was younger. Number firearms as in the metal shooty things. Naruto corrected with a sweat drop. What was it with Uchihas and fire? He knew Itachi had an arson streak. It was the thing that gave him his wanted poster at the whopping age of 8, but did he really set his arms on fire? It would explain the bandages around his arms. That would imply that he had done it more than once. The Uchiha heiress tilted her head in confusion at that rebuke. So he has metal arms that shoot things. It would seem that the kunoichi world had yet to even hear about the weapons of the seas and the rest of the world. Understandable given the constant state of war among the elemental nations. Naruto almost slapped his face due to the girl's ignorance, or was it the entire elemental nation's ignorance? "No, you child. A firearm is a weapon that shoots metal balls at high speeds and can kill from a distance with lethal effectiveness," he explained. The girl scowled at the child comment as she poked her headband with her thumb. "See this? It means I am a full adult by the village's standards," she said with pride and a smirk on her face. Naruto scoffed. "You're not an adult until you've had your first kill as well as have gotten laid," he said dismally as he crossed muscular his arms. The girl blushed after he said his sentence, however, making Naruto stare at the girl with confused eyes. "Did they make you take one final test or something I didn't know about?" he inquired, dreading the possible answer he would receive. "It was kinda part of the seduction resistance training they had us do," she said with a blush while poking her fingers together. Naruto just looked at her with a blank stare. Dear God, your siscon of a brother is going to have a fit when he hears about that. Probably go on a murder spree because someone defiled my adorable little sister," he said with air quotes. The Uchiha heiress stared at him with wide eyes when he said that. Hesitantly, she asked him a simple question. He would do that for me." Naruto looked at her with a calculative glance. girl wilted underneath it before he relented. The man would go to hell and back for his family. Last I talked with him, he said he would be heading home in around the fall season. He explained as he turned back around and grabbed his sword, pulling it out of the ground and continuing on with his sword shadow boxing. He heard a small thank you from behind him as he did 3 straight thrusts with his training blade. He did not respond to the girl, but a smile did find its way onto his face. And it was after that he asked me if I wanted a drink. Did you agree? I kinda coughed up blood and all that, but yeah, I agreed. Even after you took a punch from him, the strongest man in the world. Yep. Are you fucking crazy? From what you're describing, it sounds like you were literally about to die. I kinda did during that party. Twice. I think they had to get the whole shock the heart into life again thing about 5 times. Are you fucking stupid? I did not raise you to do something so idiotic like that, young man. Naruto shrunk back into his chair as his mother berated him for what seemed like the 3rd time of the day. All she simply asked was if he could tell her some more tales from his travels. However, as is the rules with interesting stories, all of them were pretty much about him doing something stupid. How could you be so stupid? And to think you didn't even get a scar from him. That is the only thing I can take solace in. She screamed as she threw around furniture in the living room of the mansion. Naruto's sweat dropped as he held up his hands in front of himself defensively. Actually, the scar that goes from my face and down my torso I got from him. His punch, while not at full strength, kinda almost split me in half. He explained with a cheeky smile. For seconds silence reigned. And then, he fucking what? Naruto sighed as the couch was thrown towards him. And then a flashback of the same thing happening when he was 4 years old popped into his mind. Ah, memor thwack. And he fell over unconscious, body sprawled on the floor. On the Grand Line, on a large boat, a large old man with multiple machines and hot blonde nurses surrounding him sneezed. I think I somehow pissed off a woman that I probably shouldn't have, he said in between chugs of large copious amounts of alcohol. What makes you say that, Pops? Asked a random pirate milling about on deck. Lay with enough women and you grow to have a certain 7th sense that tells you when you've pissed one off, was the gruff reply. Especially Uzumaki women, he though with a shudder. Flashbacks of the greatest beating he ever had flashing through his mind. Damn, you're still as beautiful as the last time I saw you, Granny, he said with a smile as the busty blonde 50-year-old patched him up. His body was covered head to toe in the white bandages. HMPH. Flattery will get you nowhere, brat, although it is nice to see you again so soon after you visited me yesterday. Why didn't anyone tell me you were back? She said as she wrapped his arm in the white casting. My return was kinda hush-hush at the beginning, and then the gossipers talked about how I got back, and of how I'm apparently a desirable husband candidate despite being male. I was meaning to ask, but what's up with that? He asked as he laid down on the hospital bed to rest his aching body. Tsunade smirked as she set down her clipboard, sitting down in her chair as her bust noticeably jiggled and moved. Well, apparently you've gone from an adorable little boy to a young man with a rather impressive body, all for the sake of getting the power to protect the ones you've cared about. We girls find that dedication to be impressive, you know. Naruto fixed a bored glare at her. And the things I've been hearing about the current clan heads that happen to be single. Tsunade smirked as she leaned down and gave the man a good view of her giant cleavage. However, his eyes never left hers, a sign that he was giving his full undivided attention. Either that or he just could not be distracted by the why. Those ladies simply find that your body has strong genetics that they could pass down onto their children, and you're physically pleasing to the eye to boot. She added as an afterthought. Naruto groaned as he closed his eyes, not being able to see Tsunade get up from her chair and stand over him with a smile on her face. But do I really have to deal with the stalkers? I've had enough girls chasing me from my various travels. Hell, I had an entire island chasing after me. You know, she began, most men would give both of their arms to be in your position. she said with mirth in her voice. Naruto opened his eyes to glare at Tsunade, who was hovering over him, her cleavage threatening to fall out of her vest tank top thing. And I would give an eye just to be out of it. Oh wait, I did. Crazy girl wouldn't leave me alone unless I gave a piece of me. Tsunade stood straight up when she heard that, wide-eyed as she stared into Naruto's eyes. Both of them were a brilliant shade of blue, except for the one in his right eye socket. That eye was not the same bright blue shade that the left was. It was simply a darker shade of blue, but close enough to the shade of the left one that it was easy enough to mistake them for the same without a closer inspection. How? She asked. Minako and Naruto's shade of blue was unique among the shinobi world, but to get one so close to that shade. Naruto simply pointed to his right eye with his thumb. Magic can pretty much do anything, even more so than chakra. Regrowing an eye with a sample of my DNA was actually pretty simple for that old hag to do. He then smiled at Tsunade. Porlusica is an amazing medic, been at it longer than you have, and she can give you a damn good run in terms of expertise and ability. He said with a grin. She can regrow missing body parts. Tsunade asked in wonder and amazement. Naruto shook his head. No, she can regrow small things like an eye and a nose, but an arm or a leg. The amount of nerves she has to work with when making one is simply too much for her. She does the next best thing, making a fully functional prosthetic limb that can do everything the previous limb can do and then some. He explained to the busty medic. Tsunade folded her arms with a smirk. Well then, I'm going to need to pay this poor Lucica a visit in the future. Maybe trade some notes with her if I can. She stated with a smirk. Naruto smiled at the busty blonde medic. While that's nice and all, can I go back home now? I don't want to miss dinner, you know. Tsunade leered at Naruto like she was a cat that just found a mouse to play with. No, doctor's orders. You are to stay here and let me take of you, she stated with an ever-widening smile as she sat on the hospital bed with a predatory grin. Naruto groaned when he realized what she was doing. He had to deal with enough of that when he was recovering on that old man's ship after taking that punch. Now let me take care of you, little boy. Take deep breaths and let me feel your heartbeat. Old man Chucha, how the hell do I deal with all this? Breathed out a bandaged and tired Naruto as he sat down at the Ikaraku ramen stand. Said old man was a chef that seemed to have Brock vision as he boiled a bunch of noodles in a pan. Frankly, son, I don't know whether what you have is a curse or a blessing, he stated gruffly as he flipped the contents of the pan into a broth. But I don't want it. I have women of all shapes and sizes after me. The crimson blonde cried out as Chuche placed a ramen bowl in front of the despairing boy. All shapes and sizes, from snake people to Amazons to vampires, a freaking goddess, dark matter, living slime, ghosts, scorpions, giants, fairies, freaking Titania, literal fairy queen, princesses and queens, Kunoichi, dragons, aliens, demons, angels, old people, and even my own 2 older sisters. He wailed as he stuffed his face with his chosen sad time food. Dark matter. I've only heard legends that say they are the physical embodiment of lust, muttered the old ramen stand owner. I felt it, every single one of them. For the love of all that is right and unholy, I need a break. He screamed as he slammed his head against the hardwood counter of the ramen stand. You banged your own sisters. I know you're pretty much the most desired person in the elemental nations, scratch that, a majority of the world, but really, your own sisters. I thought you could hold yourself back, he said with disappointment in his voice. Shut your trap, Izanagi. I have had to run and hide from those 2 ever since they returned. The amount of times they have tried to molest me. I would never wish such an ill fate upon anyone, the crimson blonde retorted. The old man narrowed his eyes at the lad. You would best watch when you say my name instead of my alias. I would rather not spill your innards all over my humble little ramen stand. You're lucky I put an illusion over us so that we could talk in private. In response, Naruto only laughed. You wouldn't kill me for that. You would only do that if I hurt your daughter, and I would die before I'm forced to do that. It's why you tolerate my disrespect towards you, you wrinkly piece of shit. Here we find Naruto walking towards the city of Alabaster with his new attire. Well, he would be wearing a plain shirt, but before he got the fruit he got rid of it. And now, he is wearing a black cape similar to Shanks. However, Naruto's cape has blue flames at the bottom, and he's also wearing dark blue shorts with a dark orange satchel over his shoulder, and a blue-black holster that holds his revolvers and another slot in case he ever decides that he wants a sword, and some combat boots. If you can probably guess, Naruto is still playing around with his devil fruit powers, and at the moment only thought of one move to use with it, and is now currently staring at the flames in his hand as he walks along the hot sand as he lets out a content sigh. Oh, I am so glad my devil fruit powers stopped me from feeling heat and fire, he says as looks forward to what looks to be the kingdom of Alabaster, finally. He shouts as he runs off towards the city, leaving a trail of blue flames in his way. Wow, I feel like Sonic, hee hee. He laughs as he notices the blue flames behind him, although as he continues to run he notices a woman with black hair in the distance that caught Naruto's attention, and he begins to walk towards her with his hands behind his head in a carefree attitude. As he walked towards the woman, his eyes widened slightly as he reached for his satchel and pulled out some posters and read over it, Nico Robin. Demon Child 80 million. Over with Robin, she is currently looking at the markings on the side of a destroyed structure, and to Naruto's surprise it's the same markings as the ones he's seen in the tomb as, "Hey," Robin heard someone say, and she tensed slightly as she turned round and came face to face with our blonde sage, "Hey," she said as she had her arms crossed to show she was in her stance, tres fleur. She shouts as 3 arms suddenly sprout around Naruto and hold him from moving. However, Naruto did not even flinch. The only course of action he showed was a raised eyebrow. "What do you want?" she asks as she holds him in position, though Naruto just sighs. "I noticed you were looking at the markings on the wall of a fox," he replies as he jerks a bit from her, tightening her hold on him. "What do you know about this?" She says, "Oh, just a certain devil fruit." He chuckles as he sees her eyes widen, and just as she was about to tighten her hold, his flames suddenly engulf his whole body, disabling the hold that Robin had on him, foxfire. She gasps as she calms down due to the warm aura the flames emit. "Yeah, if you're looking for the fruit, you're a bit late since the fruit chose me," he said as he lit one of his fingers on fire. "By the way, do you know where the straw hats are?" he asked as Naruto began to walk towards her as he looked her over and her attire cute. He chuckled as he seen a tint of pink on her cheek, but she wondered what he looked like since the cape covered most of his face due to having his hood up. "What do you want with the straw hats?" she asked as she tried to look at his face. In turn, all she could see was the huge grin on his face. "Well, I will be joining his crew in a few years, so I thought I'd come meet him early," he says, which caused Robin to become even more shocked. But before she could ask why, a man in a straw hat was sent flying past Naruto, who narrowed his eyes as he turned his attention to the guy wearing the straw hat. And then he noticed a guy with a hook come out with his lower body covered in sand. "Hey, Sandman, don't Geo killing my soon-to-be captain," Naruto roared as his flames spiked. However, before he could attack the hook guy, he felt the similar power to his own again, which to his surprise sent a shiver of delight up his spine. As with the straw hat guy, he groggily stood up as he had blood down the side of his head, and was heavily injured as he looked over and the cloaked figure who he thought was Shanks, until he seen his hair and the blue flames on the bottom of the cape. "Time to try out my first move of my newfound power," he whispers as the cloak covers all of his face except the huge grin on his face as he aims his finger at the Sandman. "Yo, no bullet," he whispers again as his finger shoots out a blue flame towards his opponent, which the flame could not be tracked with the normal eye due to the speed the flame was traveling, and hit the Sandman in his gut, sending him flying into a nearby wall as he turns his attention towards the Straw Hat Boy and lifts his hood from his head. "Are you Monkey D. Luffy?" he asked as he walked towards him, as his palm turned green as he put his hand on his body, which caused the boy to tense a bit but relax after a while due to his wounds no longer hurting. "Yes, I am Luffy, and I am gonna become the king of the pirates, shishishishishi." He laughs as he puts his hat back on his head. Naruto was about to ask him something until sand begun to pick up around the area, and he heard a voice. "Molly Molly no storm," the man shouted as his sand picked up into a small tornado and began to make its way towards Naruto. "Insolent fool, how dare you attack me?" he shouted as Naruto formed a small Rasen shuriken in his hand and threw it towards the storm, causing the storm to become nullified. "Will you stop interrupting me, crocodile?" Naruto shouted as he shot hundreds of foxfire bullets towards the now-named crocodile. As he was doing so, he didn't notice a man with a cowboy-like hat come out into the opening with his eyes Naruto, with a huge grin on his face. As Crocodile shot off towards Naruto, surprising him a bit as he punched him in the cheek, sending him back a few feet. As he regained his composure, he felt the same power as before and turned towards the guy wearing the cowboy hat, Ace. He heard Luffy shout as he returned the smirk towards Ace, and began to walk towards him while wiping the blood of his lip. As Ace began to do the same, as they came face to face, they locked arms with each other, and orange and blue flames suddenly started to flash between the two, sending shock wave to anyone who came near them, which is what Crocodile was trying to do, until he was blasted back. Inside the flames you can see Naruto and Ace still looking at each other and grinning like mad men. "I knew I felt a familiar power close by," they said in unison. "Hey, so you're Luffy's brother with the Mir no Mi fruit," Naruto said as he got an idea as he noticed the flames seemed to fuse into a purple flame with an orange tint. "Hey, how about we try something?" Naruto said as Ace also noticed the flames and already knew what Naruto was going to ask, as they both aimed their arms in the direction of Crocodile, who was currently sweating bullets, as they both shouted, "Ymir no beam." They both shouted as a huge orange-tinted purple beam shot out from their palms, and the beam covered Crocodile as he screamed in pain, as Naruto and Ace were left sweating a bit due to never using a fusion devil fruit attack. As they looked towards the now unconscious Crocodile, he gave Ace a fist bump, names Naruto. He grins as Ace smirks back, names Ace, or my nickname is Fire Fist Ace. He laughed as he noticed Naruto raise an eyebrow. "Yeah, don't tell Luffy, but Shanks told me about you, Sabo." "And Luffy?" He chuckled as he noticed Ace choke a bit. "Yeah, after 3 or 4 years I'll be joining Luffy on his crew, but at the moment I am learning how to control my devil fruit power and haki," he says as Ace smirks. "Hey, if you want during your time on your training trip, I'd be glad to help out a fellow fire-type devil fruit user. And I bet Marco would love to meet you. After all, our meeting was similar with me and Marco, although he just wanted to butt heads at first." At this, Naruto's smile widened as he laughed a bit. "Oh, you mean Phoenix boy? Yeah, I'll be glad to meet him, and I'll tell Shanks that I'll be coming over to see Whitebeard about the training." Ace just shook him off and laughed a bit at the nickname for Marco, as they both turned their attention towards Luffy, who was currently talking with some of his crew members, and a girl with blue hair, as him and Ace began to walk towards them with Naruto's cape swirling behind him, making him look even more badass. "Hey, Luffy," Naruto and Ace shouted in unison again, which caused the two butt heads. "Stop that," they said again now. They both said Ajin, but then they just burst out laughing along with the other people who were there. "Yeah, what can I do for you?" Luffy asked as he sat down with his legs crossed. Naruto just smiled at Luffy. "Yeah, I want to join your crew in 3 to 4 years' time," Naruto said as the rest of the Straw Hats appeared and looked towards Naruto with his cloak now overshadowing his eyes, as Luffy just laughed. "Shishishi, well, you act really similar to my brother, so I'm welcome to let you join, but what is your dream?" Luffy asked seriously as Naruto just let out a sad sigh. "By the time I join your crew, my dream will already be accomplished," he said as Luffy just nodded and smiled. "Okay, I'll see you in 3 to 4 years," he said as the rest of the Straw Hats introduced themselves to him with open arms. Well, except Zoro and Sanji, who were still a bit weary of him. Alabaster Kingdom, the feast. Naruto is currently sitting in one of the seats in the royal feast chamber, as he scoffs down bowl after bowl of ramen as fast as Luffy can eat meat, which surprised Luffy and the crew, although Luffy was too busy eating. Naruto and Luffy both lay back in their chairs, patting their bloated bellies with a content sigh. Then Naruto immediately remembered something and looked over towards Usopp, who looked the split and double of his father, who was currently eating, or at least trying to do, to Luffy stealing all the food. Naruto waved at him to come over. As Usopp noticed Naruto waving at him, he was skeptical at first, but walked towards him nonetheless, and Naruto whispered in his ear, "Hey, are Yasopp's kid?" he asked, as Usopp was just about to yell, but was stopped when Naruto covered his mouth with his own hand. "SHHHH. I don't want Luffy to find out that Roman 4 been on Shanks' ship yet. And if Shanks found out, he'd kill me, which it's why I'm only telling you this, as Yasopp gave me something to give to you since he was never there for you," Naruto said as he handed Usopp the revolver and the letters. "Thank you, Naruto," Usopp said, who was on the verge of bursting into tears as Robin looked towards Usopp, who slowly left the room and then turned her attention back towards Naruto, who went to cleaning his revolver, who ended up sulking a bit, saying things like, "I never got to use it," which made Robin giggle a bit, which caught Naruto's attention and made him look at her and smile. "What?" he asked as he gave her his rare foxy grin, which caused Nami, who was stared at Naruto, to listen to the conversation, to blush a bit, as well as Robin, who looked away for a bit before turning back to Naruto. "Well, do you know why the devil fruit chose you?" she said, as the whole room went silent, as Naruto let out a small sigh and said, "Well, since I am going to be with you, I might as well show you my true form. And my story," he said, as he dispelled the genjutsu to show, "is now blue tail and ears with black tips," as he started to explain about Kurama, and how he is a Hanyo, which got an unexpected reaction from the girls and boy. Luffy and Ace had stars in their eyes, and Sanji and Zoro were grinning, while the girls were now blushing red at how kawaii they looked in their eyes, which did not go unnoticed by Naruto, who in the end also ended up blushing a bit, as he also told them that he wasn't going to let Kurama out because he was more perverted than Sanji. This caused him to get a glare from him, which Naruto just shrugged of, and told Sanji that he was drooling blood from his nose, and that if he let him out he would probably jump Nami and Robin, which caused the two to growl a bit, which caused Naruto to hold up his hands. Hey now, I'm only protecting the two lovely ladies." He sighed in relief at the reactions, which was a blush, which in turn caused both girls to think the same thing. "My heart is beating fast, he's so hot," the two thought, and ended up blushing more. But Naruto's conversation with the ladies were over due to a call for Luffy. "Hey Naruto, what's your devil fruit called?" he asked, as Naruto looked at Luffy with a deadpan. "Did you not hear me call out my move?" "Well, in any case, it's Foxfire. It's apparently the strongest fire Logia, but I'm not one to judge, since mine and Ace's fusion attack was awesome," he said with pride in his voice, as Ace nodded along with him, who pumped out his chest, as the two males began to laugh again with their arms around each other's shoulders, saying stuff like "fire is the best," and other things related to fire, as Naruto's Den Den Mushi began to ring. He guys, this might be my teacher, so I'm gonna have to take it privately, especially not in front of Luffy," he said as he walked out the door and put a fire wall up and a privacy barrier, and lifted the Den Den Mushi out of his pocket. Clank. "Hey, what's up, Shanks?" he asked, as the Den Den Mushi that looked like Shanks began to talk. "Naruto, we're back from our trip, and we are waiting for you, but you better hurry cause we got the Marines on our ass," he said, as Naruto just smiled. "Sure, just let me say bye to the Straw Hats, and I can definitely say the girls are much hotter than what they look like on the poster," he teased, as you could hear Shanks begin to splutter innocent words, which caused Naruto to laugh more, as he just smirked. "Oh, and Roman 4 got a surprise to show you when I get back that I know is gonna be the funniest thing for me," Naruto said as he finished up the call with his teacher. He walked back in, disabling the fire and seal. "Well guys, I'm gonna have to go now since my teacher has had a run-in with the Navy, and I need to get back, so I'll see you in a few years, okay, bye," he said with one last foxy grin and winked towards the girls as he stepped away, leaving blue flames and a star-eyed Luffy, Usopp and Ace, and a blushing Nami, Robin and Vivi. Naruto wondered as he just shrugged it off as he began to step towards the ship with red-haired pirates. "Damn it, where is he?" Shanks shouts as he activated his haki to his sword and swung his sword Bulgyun Sarbyog, Red Dawn, Shanks shouted as he slashed his sword downwards, and a bright red beam slash cut one of the battleships in half. Just then, a blue flame morphed into Naruto, who was now on one knee sweating a bit. "I'm here now, go." Naruto shouted as Shanks began to give out orders, but he was wondering about the blue flames he just seen. He reminded himself to ask later, but right now, he was too focused on getting away from the Marines. He thought as Naruto summoned some clones to help Shanks' crew move the ship as Yasop pulled out his rifle, Tulipol Nalkalan Chong. Triple sharp shoot. He shouted as 3 cannon balls that were going to hit the back of the ship suddenly exploded mid-air. The ship then began to move at a fast pace as Naruto lied back against the mass. "Oh, this is gonna be a long chase." He sighed as he summoned Kurama. "Go have some fun." He muttered as over the next few hours Kurama was in his full fox form, demolishing the other battleships like a child's toy. Somewhere at sea, Naruto is currently lying down on the deck snoring away as Shanks walks towards him. "Hey Naruto, get up," he shouts as he kicks him in the side of the hip, walking him up, and head-butting Shanks right in his family jewels, causing Shanks' eyes to roll in the back of his head, and let out a girly scream. "Oops, sorry Shanks." He laughs as Shanks' crew is laugh along with him as they see their captain curl into a ball holding his privates. After Shanks recovered from his injury, he looks at Naruto and asks, "What was with those blue flames earlier, Roman? For never seen you use them before." He asked as he noticed Naruto grin back at him, which for some reason made Shanks nervous. "Oh, that it was just my new devil fruit that has the ability to surpass white beard," he says casually as he notices Shanks' eyes go wide as he looks at Naruto with a shocked expression. "What fruit?" he asked while his jaw was now on the floor as he notices Naruto's grin widen that to the size of a fox's foxfire. He says as he notices that Shanks can't take that shock anymore, as he falls back unconscious, as well as some of the people who were listening to faint as well, which caused Naruto to laugh as he began to walk towards Yasop. "Hey Yasop, I delivered your letters, and present as I can happily say you brought him to tears of joy, and he said he was happy that you still cared for him even though you're a pirate." He laughs as he notices Yasop begins to cry comically, while rubbing his eyes saying stuff like, "Warriors don't cry," which only made him laugh more as when Usopp was crying of joy, he said the same thing. Naruto then turned around as he notices that Shanks called his name. "It's time to start your training," he said as Naruto then looked away for a second, then back at Shanks. "Hey, do you think you could train me for 2 years on my haki, and let the white-beard pirates help me with my devil fruit?" he asked as Shanks' eyes widened again as Naruto explained that he met Ace, and he said he would help him with it, which caused Shanks to smile a bit and nod at his request. Time skip to 2 years later. Here we find Naruto sitting on the mast of the red-haired pirate's ship wearing the same attire as before, looking over. However, this time he had a sword, holstered the sea, as he notices the seagull newspaper deliverer thing drop a newspaper in front of him, which he opened, and yawned as he began to look through the paper. However, his eyes widened on what was on the front page. "What the hell is this?" Naruto shouted as he dropped down from the mast and began to walk towards the captain's quarters, as everyone who got close to Naruto were surprised by what happened to Naruto and wondered what was on the newspaper that made him this shocked and mad. But what shocked them even more was when he kicked the door down to Shanks' room. "Shanks, we have a big problem," Naruto shouted as he threw the paper towards Shanks, who was currently behind his desk, and hid the posters under his desk, and caught the paper and began skimming through the paper, as his eyes widened as big as Naruto's, and had begun to leak his haki, in which didn't seem to faze Naruto anymore as they both walked outside. And he looked towards Naruto. "Hey Naruto, I want you to go ahead of us using your flash step, and get there as fast as you can," he ordered as Naruto just nodded and disappeared in blue flames. As soon as Naruto was gone, Shanks began shouting orders. "Set a course for Marineford." He shouted, "I hope you 2 brats are okay," he thought as his crew got to work. Naruto can be seen flash stepping across the ocean at high speed, just high enough to avoid being weakened by the water. Naruto currently has an emotionless face on the outside, but in his mindscape, he is a nervous wreck. Damn it, damn it. Damn it, damn it. Naruto shouted as he was pacing in circles as Kurama just let out an irritated sign due to not being able to get any sleep or perv on the posters. Will you stop shouting and pacing and let me go to sleep? Kurama roared as he rubbed some of the sleep out of his eyes. What on earth is the matter with you? He shouted as he noticed that Naruto only acts panicked due to heavy circumstances, and Kurama was slightly worried about that. Well, why don't you search my memories and see why I am panicking? Naruto shouted as he punched a nearby tree due to Naruto's mindscape looking a lot more pleasant, and over the years he was able to learn how to shape his mindscape to his own will. Kurama closed his eyes and began to scramble through Naruto's memories only a few moments ago, which, when he found what he was looking for, his red slit eyes suddenly widened as he let out a low growl. Naruto, you better let me out when we get there. He roared as Naruto let out a dark chuckle. Don't worry, Kur, I'll let you out. You can count on it, he laughed as he left his mindscape. Naruto looked back to see if he could still see Shank's ship. However, he ended up leaving him for dust as he looked around through. While flash stepping, he could only see water as far as the eye could see. Hey Kur, can you pick up Ace's life signature anywhere? He asked as Kurama closed his eyes and began to concentrate. Keep heading the way you are going, and you should see an island in a few hours or so. Kurama said as he lied down so H could get as much sleep as possible before Naruto reaches Marineford. At Marineford, Ace is currently on his knees at the execution stone of Marineford. He is badly injured, and he no longer has his hat with sea prison stone handcuffs around his back and legs. His eyes are also being shadowed by his hair, as he witnesses the three Mobi's come onto shore. However, one was larger than the other two, indicating it was the flagship. And also because Whitebeard was at the front of the ship with his big polearm in his grasp. Go and save that brat. Newgate roared as he slammed the hilt of his weapon on the deck of the ship, creating a huge shock wave as his crew roared along with him and charged towards the Marines. Ace. Luffy roared as he was standing next to Whitebeard in his gear second form. He then shot of the ship and joined in with Whitebeard's crew on the assault. Gamu Gamu no Jet Gatling. He shouted as he began to fire fist after fist at the opposing force, sending the Marines hurling back. Marco then landed next to him. The whole of Marco's left hand was suddenly engulfed in blue flames like Naruto's, only a little brighter, and instead of black tips his had yellow. Marco was about the same size as Ace. He had short, shaggy blonde hair like Naruto's, only a little darker. He had a purple vest on that was unzipped to show of his muscular body, and a pair of long dark blue pants. He also had a tattoo of the Whitebeard insignia on his chest. Hey kid, you're being too reckless. Marco growled as he turned into that of a blue and yellow phoenix and flew off into the sky, while leaving a trail of flames over the Marines. But suddenly, a tall man appeared in front of him wearing a horrible white and yellow striped suit with sunglasses on. Ooh, Marco the Phoenix, I am going to have to take you in even though it's scary ye tilde. The man said as Marco shot towards him. Kizaru. He roared, light sword, Kizaru said as a long blade emerged from his hand, as their attacks collided with Kizaru being on the defensive. Meanwhile, Luffy was currently running towards the tower while using every move he can think of to get past the Marines that are standing in his way. Out of my way. He shouted, Gamu Gamu no whip. Luffy shouted again as he stretched his foot out and wiped out more Marines. This continued on for hours with no side prevailing. However, both sides counted heavy losses. Luffy has been surrounded, and the execution is about to take place as all eyes were now on the emotionless Ace. The two swords slashed down until Luffy shouted Ace. Then time seemed to stop as all of the weak-minded Marines around him, and the executioners suddenly dropped to the floor as Whitebeard smirked and raised an eyebrow. Gura, that brat is an interesting one. Whitebeard laughed as he clenched his fist and slammed his fist into the air as white cracks began to form in the air where Whitebeard's fist is, and suddenly the ground on Marineford began to shake and huge cracks appear on the landscape. Monkey D. Garp suddenly appeared in front of Luffy. However, Luffy sent a right hook straight into Garp's, just sending him hurling into a nearby wall, shattering the wall into pieces, as he jumped up to the execution platform to confront Ace Ivankov. Then suddenly appeared behind Luffy. Luffy tilde I got the key to Ace's handcuffs, he said as he threw the key towards Luffy, and went back to fighting the Marines. However, before he could unlock the handcuffs, a huge golden hand came down in front of him, so Luffy expanded into a huge balloon and nullified the attack that came from the Fleet Admiral Sengoku, who was now in his Buddha form, who was knocked back a bit by the block. Ace had tears down his face as he looked up at Luffy while he was putting the lock into the keyhole on his cuffs, and as soon as the cuffs fell of his arms and legs, his flames suddenly shot out at all directions, only avoiding Luffy, who was now side by side with his brother. All of the white-beard pirates were cheering and roaring, shouting things like "Ace is free," and "We have won." Luffy and Ace then begun to make their way down the tower, taking out anyone who got in their way. That was until Akinu landed right in front of them with his eyes shadowing his eyes as he clenched his fists and his hands were suddenly engulfed in lava, and shot lava dogs towards Luffy and Ace. "Mira Mira no fire fist," Ace shouted as he punched the lava dogs away without getting burnt due to him, and Akinu technically being similar fruits. However, the Admiral suddenly started shooting lava in the air, so they came shooting down towards Ace and Luffy like meteors. "Mira Mira no fire gun," Ace shouted again, and flames shot at the balls of magma. However, he winced a bit when some of the magma scraped onto his cheek. Luffy was growling in frustration due to not being able to help Ace fight the Admiral. "Damn it," he shouted as he punched another Marine, sending hurling towards other Marines. He then heard Ace shout, "Luffy, go on ahead of me, take care of this magma freak." He roared as his fist collided with Akinu's fist, creating a big explosion. However, Akinu suddenly smirked evilly and leaped towards Luffy, appearing behind him with his fist about to go through his back. However, Ace appeared in front of Luffy's back ready to take the blow. Although nothing came, he turned around, and his eyes widened. Standing there blocking Akinu's fist with his own fire fist was Naruto. Although he was different than usual, his eyes had slits instead of normal, and they were now red and glaring daggers at Akinu, and the only words Naruto muttered was, "You no chum bulcock." Flame dance. Flames suddenly sprouted all around Naruto like vines, only they were flames, and they shot towards the shell-shocked Akinu, who put his fist in a cross position and got sent a few meters back by the attack and fell on one knee. "This kid knows haki," he growled. "Who are you?" he said calmly, although you could hear the venom in his voice. Naruto just smirked towards the Admiral. "Name's Naruto. I ate the foxfire fruit, so don't be thinking magma is stronger against my fire." He laughed as he saw the stern look in Akinu's face wash away and replaced by a shocked one, and Naruto proved it by pointing palms towards at you no blaze storm. He roared as the flames shot towards Akinu, who shot his magma at the attack and the two attacks. While Akinu waited for the smoke to clear, Naruto placed his hand on Luffy and Ace, and Flash stepped onto Whitebeard's ship, who was currently fighting Aokiji. Naruto fell on one knee and wiped sweat from his head, and Ace looked at Naruto. "What are you doing here tonight?" "Not that I'm not happy to see you," Ace said, as the two brothers grinned at him. Naruto just gave a grin in return as he stood back up. "Come on, Ace, you should know that I'm not gonna let my Logia bro die now, am I?" He laughed as Ace just smiled more at being called a brother to Naruto. Naruto then did some hand signs and slammed his hands on the deck, summoning jutsu. He shouted as a fox, the size of the Mobi, appeared next to the ship. "Damn, I'm smaller than I used to be," Kurama said as he shrunk down to his kit form and hopped on Naruto's shoulder. "Hey Kurama, I want you to help the old man." He laughed a bit at the glare Ace sent him, and Naruto just sighed at the pleading look in Kurama's eyes, which was adorable in his kit form. "Fine, you can cause some destruction after you have helped him," Naruto said as he laughed as Kurama jumped off his shoulder and landed on Ace's head before jumping off, sending Ace to the ground and running towards Whitebeard. leaving behind a laughing Naruto and Luffy and grumbling Ace about stupid Fox. With Kurama, he was running towards Whitebeard in a slightly bigger form. He now stood about the same size as Whitebeard. As he was running, he was using his tails to take out anyone that got in his way, and also shot balls of foxfire out of his mouth at some of the Marines that stood in front of him. He was surprised when he learned that he also had the devil fruit, which caused him to jump up and down like a little girl getting a new toy or clothes. However, as he got behind Whitebeard, his eyes widened slightly when he had one fist-sized hole in his stomach. He then hopped in front of Whitebeard much to his surprise and said, "Hey old man, your kid's back, so can you let me have some fun?" He asked in his normal carefree attitude, although there was a bit admiration in his voice which caused Whitebeard to grin. Gura, sure thing, fox brat." He laughed as he turned round and slowly stomped towards his ship due to him, knowing that the fox was not a normal animal. Kurama's eyes twitched at the name, but turned his attention towards the Admiral and the Marines that were now around him. He smiled like it was Christmas and charged towards the Marines. Let's just say the only challenge was the Admiral. Naruto sighed as he looked at the war that was slowly coming to an end, but that didn't stop the admirals from trying to continue. Then, a man wearing a panda hat appeared and looked towards Luffy, and told him that he will have to take care of his injuries. Naruto then turned his attention towards Ace, who was walking towards him with the Phoenix guy. "So this is Bird Brain you told me about." He laughed as the Bird Brain glared at him while Ace just laughed. "Yeah, well, this Bird Brian could be classed as another Logia bro, since he is technically uses fire." Ace laughed as Naruto just stared at him blankly. "That depends on whether you look at him as a fire type of a bird type. But I'm okay with that. After all, I might as well get to know him, since someone made a promises to me and Roman 4 finished my training. Shanks' ship was already going to meet up with you, but when we found out the news, I came here and left Shanks behind." Naruto laughed as he looked at Luffy, gave a weak wave to the three, as the now-named Law carried him away to his submarine. The ship had finally undocked away from Marineford, leaving Kurama there, who was fighting the three admirals. While sweating a little bit, the admirals were surprised when he suddenly disappeared in a poof of smoke. "Damn it, Kit, you had to ruin my fun." Naruto heard Kurama roar, and he just laughed and cut his mental link with him for a bit so he can give him time to cool off. As Naruto looked over to the island again, Az saw Shanks save some pink-haired kid and blocked Akinu's magma punch with his sword. Naruto smiled when Shanks gave him a sea prison sword exactly like it, although he had a hard time avoiding his own blade from weakening himself, such as cleaning it or just accidentally touching the blade instead of the hilt. Naruto's thoughts were stopped when he noticed that he had every kind of weapon aimed towards him, making him sweat drop a bit. "What?" Naruto shouted as he held up his hands. "Who are you?" asked one of Whitebeard's crew. "I am Ace and Luffy's bro, you idiot," he shouted as the crew cleared away as Whitebeard slowly walked towards him, making him slightly nervous. Not that he would show it. "So Ace has 4 brothers, what's your name, brat?" Whitebeard asked in his rough voice as he looked down at Naruto. Naruto just grinned at him. "Naruto Uzumaki, but people probably know me as the Foxfire Sage," he said as Whitebeard let out a loud laugh as he looked back down at Naruto. "Yeah, I do, brat, you're the one with the 330 million bounty for killing a Nobel," he said as his laugh died down, and all of his crew were wide-eyed towards Naruto, while he just smirked, remembering his time at Grove 42 at the entrance to Fish Man Island, as he had killed one for ordering Naruto to become his slave bodyguard, which caused Naruto's blood to boil and well kill him, and he had to take on Aokiji for killing him. "Yup, but I got a favor to ask since Ace made a promise to me," he said seriously, which caused Whitebeard to raise an eyebrow towards Ace and Naruto. "I promised I'd help him with his devil fruit. After all, we do sort of have the same fruit." He laughed as Whitebeard just growled a bit, but before he could answer, Naruto interrupted. "I won't be trained, yet I gotta look after Luffy for a bit, so I'll be jumping on board Law's sub, and in a few months after your crew and ship have all been repaired, I'll return." Naruto assured, which caused Whitebeard to give him a grateful nod as Naruto waved bye to the crew, and gave a flaming fist bump with Ace, causing the flames to go purple, which made Whitebeard's eyes widen slightly as Naruto disappeared in a blue flash. Those two are able to fuse their devil fruits. That's a frightening ability, Whitebeard thought to himself as he started giving out orders to his crew. Naruto appeared inside the submarine, much to the surprise of everyone on it, who all suddenly got in a defensive stance. "Relax, I'm Luffy's bro, don't go killing me now," he said as some of the crew relaxed until one of Law's crew member came up to him. "How did you get here? We are already submerged," he asked as Naruto just smiled. "Teleport or flash step?" He grinned. The crew looked at him shocked until Law came out of the operation room. "He is stable, but we will need to stop to an island to get more medical supplies," he said as he looked at Naruto. "Who are you?" he asked with a calm voice. Naruto just smirked. "Naruto Uzumaki," he said, which caused Law to stumble a bit. "Foxfire say?" he asked as Naruto nodded. "Yup, I am gonna stay with Luffy a while until he gets fixed up, then I gotta go and get back to Whitebeard's crew," he said as he lied against the wall of the submarine. And Law just shrugged. "Fine with me as long as you don't cause trouble," he said as Naruto then looked at Law. "Which island we going to?" he asked as Law just waved at him without turning round. "Amazon Lily." Naruto is currently sitting in one of the seats on Law's sub, hunched over with his hands wrapped around his stomach, making wheezing sounds. "Erg, I think I am gonna be sick," he says as he turns green and holds his hand over his mouth, trying to find some way to settle his stomach inside his mindscape. Kurama wasn't coping too well with her. He was currently on his back with his tongue out his mouth, and his fur was a paler gray color. "Please, Tilda, how long do we have to stay on this swimming death trap, Tilda?" Kurama cried, anime tears. All Naruto could do was nod along with him. "Hey, Fox Sage, Tilda," Law shouted from his seat on the sub as Naruto looked over at him with a sick look which made Law's eyebrow twitch. "Luffy should be fine when we get to the Isle Amph, Tilda." His words were cut off as soon as Naruto leaped at him, pinning him to the floor with his chair knocked over. "How long?" Naruto whined. Law sat up and rubbed his temples from the fall while glaring at Naruto, but just let out a sigh. "A few hours," he said in his normal calm tone. Naruto let out his own sigh as he looked out the window of the sub, admiring the view while also holding onto his stomach, as if he was stabbed or something. Naruto was still looking out of the window until he seen the sub begin to emerge from the water, so he rushed to the exit of the sub, pushing the other pirates out of the way in the process. As he reached the hatch of the pirate sub, he burst out of it and began gasping. "Ooh, sweet fresh air, Tilda," he panted, and he sat backwards with his head looking at the sky. When Naruto decided to look at his surroundings and noticed that the Dark King Rayleigh and Jinbei was currently talking to Luffy, who was talking about meeting up with his crew in another 2 years. Naruto hopped of the sub and onto the sandy beach and started walking towards the pirates, not before letting his legs getting used to being on land again. Naruto was currently talking with Luffy along the coast as they watched Law's ship slowly beginning to submerge. "So you're going to train for 2 years before you meet up with your crew again?" Naruto asked as Luffy just did his infamous smile. "Yet, Tilda, if we want to go to the New World, we have to become much stronger, so Rayleigh has come up with a plan to get my crew to meet up in those 2 years." Naruto just nodded his head. "Yeah, I guess you couldn't come up with a plan like that." Naruto laughed, which caused a tick mark to appear on Luffy's head. "Hey, yes I can." "Shishishi," he yelled with a laugh of his own. Naruto just let out a sigh as he waved bye to Luffy and told him that he would meet up with his crew in the 2 years that they would be training, and that he also said that he was going to be staying on the island for a while until the Whitebeard pirates would meet him on the Island of Women. After everyone had departed, the only one left standing on the beach was Naruto, who was currently staring into the dense forest that lies before him. He knew that the women that inhabit the island had already seen him and everyone that was with him before, but he just ignored them. Naruto then began to walk slowly towards the forest that was, until an arrow came shooting towards him heading straight towards his head. But thanks to his observation haki, he slid his head to the side, and the arrow shot past his head, threading a few strands of his hair. In the process, the arrow that went past him hit a nearby rock, and the rock was impaled by a large crater due to the arrow. Haki-infused arrows, that's new for me. Naruto chuckles as he threw some chakra-infused shuriken at the culprit, who ended up leaping into the open. It was a girl with blonde hair and wearing some very revealing tribal clothes. She also had a strange-looking snake around her neck. Naruto looked at her with his arms crossed, staring at her, although she was bending her snake so that it was in the shape of a bow at him. "What are you, and what are you doing here?" she demanded. Naruto just chuckled at her. "Don't worry, I'm just waiting here for a crew of pirates to pick me up since I will be leaving in a few weeks," he assured, and smirked at the other question. "And for your what question, I am a man," he said as she widened her eyes. Naruto had figured that they would not know what a man was since it was called the Island of Women after all. "Well, you will have to come with me to see the Empress," she demanded again. Naruto just let out a small huff as he slowly began walking towards her. Naruto had figured that she was going to put him to sleep just as he thought that she stabbed an arrow in his upper shoulder. But to her surprise, he didn't even flinch and ended up falling asleep while standing. A few other Amazons came out and began to move Naruto towards the village while also getting a little curious about the structure of a man. Amazon village cell. Naruto groggily got up and rubbed his eyes a bit and realized that he was in a cell, and when he looked around the cell, he noticed that where the bars were they were currently lots of women mobbing around the cell. Some were blushing and some were examining. Naruto then stood up and looked at the women who stabbed him in the shoulder. "You didn't have to stab me, you know." He deadpanned at her as she just let out a small growl. Shut up," she spluttered. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, but then looked down and realized that he was naked, so using his devil fruit, he engulfed his body and a blue flame vanished, so that he was wearing his normal clothes again. Some of the females let out whines and growls at why he wasn't naked anymore, and others were shocked at what he had done. Naruto then sat in the lotus potion and went into his mindscape, much the confusion of the women. "Hey Kerr, are you still alive?" Naruto laughed as he saw Kurama in a near-death state with his nose red from all of the blood loss. "Why? Yes, I am alive." Barely, Kurama panted as he sat up again like he was never in a near-death state. "So what can I do for you?" Naruto smirked at that. "Hey Kerr, how would you like to come out?" Naruto asked his perverted partner, almost laughing at the shocked look on Kurama's face. Then outside the mindscape, Naruto began going through some hand signs that confused the women watching him all the more. After he finished the hand seals, he shouted, "Summoning Jutsu." Then there was a poof of smoke, and there stood in his kit form Kurama, which not so surprisingly caused most of the girls to squeal and just want to cuddle him. And while the girls were detracted with Kurama, who was currently Heaven realized what Naruto had done, he cursed and thanked him for that. You no bullet," Naruto whispered, and began shooting the wall so that the holes made the outline of a door. He then kicked it down and made way for his escape. Little did he know the wall he shot down leads to the arena. Amazon Village Arena. Naruto sighed as he slowly walked down a long corridor. However, as he seen a light at the end, he noticed a big sign on the wall that read, "Arena." Naruto could only curse at his bad luck, although as he began walking again, he heard someone shouting something familiar. "Gamu Gamu no Rocket." Naruto heard as he came to an opening end. When he did, to his surprise, he seen Luffy fighting two snake ladies. Naruto, however, was now the center of attention as he slowly walked to the middle of the arena and stood his usual stance with his arms folded. Some of the women, however, were shocked. "Hey, how did you get out?" the blonde girl that stabbed him from before said as she left him there to go watch what was going on at the arena. Luffy stopped his attack and turned round and noticed Naruto standing a few yards away from him. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Luffy shouted. However, Naruto was currently feeling like he was being glared at like in Konoha, which caused his eyes overshadow and unintentionally let loose his ki, which also caused nearly everyone to be sick except for Luffy, as Naruto managed to avoid aiming it at him. Naruto's eyes became blue with dark red slits and flames went from his fingers up to his shoulders. And finally his blonde hair then had blue and black tips in them, although before he could lose control, he managed to calm himself down. When Kurama jumped on his shoulder, "You okay, kid? I came as soon as I sensed you leaking killing intent." Naruto could only drop down on one knee and pant a bit. "Why, yeah. Just, those glares gave me bad memories." "What was that?" "It felt like I was going to turn into a wild animal," Naruto thought, and shuddered a bit at that. However, he nearly lost control when he seen the glare the woman who was sitting in a throne was giving him. Instead, he just let out a sad sigh and regained his composure and went back to his usual self. He sorry about that everyone, Tilda." He laughed as he turned serious again. "Hey Luffy, I should be asking you the same thing. You should have left with Rayleigh," he shouted with a tick mark. Luffy wasn't able to answer as one of the lizards shot towards Naruto with her large claws extended. "Die." She shouted as she slashed towards him that sent him back a few feet as he had his arms crossed in a blocking position. "Yoi, you no shotgun." Naruto shouted as he raised his hands and spread his fingers, causing lots of small flames to shoot out of them, and hit the lizard women, hurling back and hit into the near wall, causing a small explosion. Naruto then walked towards Luffy while the two sisters were currently gritting their teeth. "You were saying?" He chuckled at his soon-to-be captain. "Yeah, Shishishi, old man Rayleigh said he was going away to meet someone. And when he has done so, he left me at Amazon Lily while he is gone, and he won't be back for a week." At hearing this, Naruto could only smirk and put one of his arms around Luffy's shoulder. "Well, looks like we are going to be spending some time together since I will be here for a week too." He laughed as Luffy laughed along with him. However, the Empress suddenly broke the silence by standing up, which caused Naruto to look up at her with a raised eyebrow. Then she put her hands in a heart-shaped pose with her arms stretched out towards Naruto. "Miro, Miro, mellow," she said, and a continuous beam of love hearts shot out towards Naruto and passed through him. After a few seconds, Naruto let out a few blinks and looked at her. "Was that supposed to hurt?" he asked as he started checking his own body to see if anything was out of the ordinary. And to his shock and humor, Kurama was still on his shoulder, but he was as solid as a rock, literally. Naruto was about to loose all of his strings until Luffy burst out laughing, and Naruto just gave him the explain look towards him. Luffy wiped a few stray tears away and looked at Naruto. "Her devil fruit power is the Miro Miro no Mi, which basically turns anyone who looks at her with dirty thoughts to stone." He laughed, which caused Naruto to roll around on the floor as well. However, the stone-hard Kurama began to glow red, and then there was a poof of smoke, and their standing good as new was Kurama, which caused the Empress's eyes to widen and glare daggers at Naruto and the fox. "Take them away, however, bring that one with me," she shouted while pointing towards Naruto, much to the shock of the other females and her sisters. So he called back Kurama and nodded towards Luffy and began to follow the guards to where he was going to meet the Empress. Amazon Village, Empress's private chambers. Naruto slowly entered into the Empress's private chambers and began to look around the large queen-like chamber. As he walked further into the large room, he noticed that the Empress was currently sitting on her bed, still glaring towards Naruto, which made him narrow his eyes towards her. He was about to speak, but she beat him to it. "Do you think I am beautiful?" she asked as she flicked her hair like a princess, which caused Naruto's eyes to twitch. "What?" he stumbled, which caused her to huff. "Do you think I, the Empress of Amazon Lily, is the most beautiful woman you have ever seen?" she asked like she knew the obvious answer to the question. So Naruto took the time to examine the Empress of Amazon Lily. He had to admit that she was definitely beautiful, although she would be a lot more beautiful without the Emma Princess attitude. She has long slim legs that she wasn't afraid to show them. She had beautiful round globes for S that looked like they would pop out of her robes at any moment, and her long silky raven black hair that had a shine to it. After he was done, he did have dirty thoughts, but he pushed them to the back of his mind. in which Kurama was currently viewing the dirty images that Naruto had thought up of, which caused him to giggle perversely. So Naruto had to hold a tick mark appearing, so he cut the link with Kurama for a while. Yes, you are very beautiful. However, she smirked at being called beautiful just as she suspected, although she was shocked at what he said next. Just from looking at you, I could also tell that you think you are better than everyone else. And you obviously hate men for a reason that pisses me off, because not all men are the same. He growled a bit as he sat down on one of the bedroom chairs, which caused her to glare at him a bit before turning around and unseal her clothes. Much to the shock of Naruto and Kurama, as they were now both holding onto their noses. What are you doing? Naruto panicked a bit before he noticed a mark on her back. I already shown this to Luffy-kun, he said. He didn't know what it was. She was cut of by Naruto. The slave mark. He sighed as he looked up to the sky. Yeah, I have seen it. It's a mark of those asses of the nobles, he said, but he spat the word noble with venom in his voice. However, he just smiled at her. What do you think of me now? She asked as she put up her mask, which Naruto noticed immediately. So you hide behind your mask. Naruto gave out a sad chuckle as her eyes widened ever so slightly. I don't know what you're talking about, man. She said, but cursed herself for stuttering. Don't lie, Empress. Roman IV hid behind a mask nearly all of my life, and if I had to guess, so have you. He smiled at her again. And no, I don't think of you any lower since you have that mark. It's somehow similar to the mark I have. Naruto chuckled as he gave her his foxy grin, which caused a slight tinge to appear at the side of her cheeks, and small tears welled up at the corner of her eyes. Oh. And my name's not man, it's Naruto, your empress. He laughed at her, which she gave another glare at him, but just let out a small huff and looked the other way. And my name's not Empress, it's Boa Hancock. The now named Boa Hancock introduced herself to Naruto, in which he smiled at her, and lifted his shirt off so that he could show her his mark, which caused her cheeks to turn red at his well-toned body, and the abs that looked like they were carved from Kami herself. But then the markings caught her attention, and she slowly ran her index finger up and down his mark, and he began to explain what it was, and that it was a mark that kept his pet partner friend inside him, and that it was the fox that she had turned to stone earlier was intact. A demon, don't worry about him. Since he is a pervert, he wouldn't dream of destroying this island. He laughed as Boa just gave Naruto a grin that promised that Kurama would experience pain the next time she seen him. Naruto just gave a small pray towards Kurama, as he knew he was in for a hard time then. Boa was having a mixture of anger and relief towards the people that hurt Naruto, which confused her a bit. Now it's your turn to remove your mask, Naruto ordered, and for some reason she just listened to him and burst into tears and covered her eyes. However, she stiffened a bit when she felt a pair of arms wrap around her body, so she cried into Naruto's chest. After several minuets of her crying, she ended up falling asleep in his arms, so he had put her down on the bed and gave off a small chuckle. She actually looks cute when she's asleep. Naruto slowly walked out of the room, unknown to him that she was still awake. Amazon Village Arena. Headed to the arena, which was currently empty. All except Luffy, who was busy training some of his techniques. He sat at the edge of the arena and lied back with his hands behind his head, and did what Shikamaru liked to call cloud watching. As he slowly raised one of his hands and lit up one of his fingers, then he suddenly got an idea for one of his new moves. He held up one hand and Kurama's chakra entered it, and caused his hand to change into gold for its Biju form, and he lit his other hand with his blue flames, and he slowly put his hands together and pushed them outwards, and it shocked him what happened, which caused him to smirk and let out heavy panting. Damn, that draws a lot of my energy. I think that's a new move for me. I think I'll call it Yoi Yoi no Pogsu Bunno, Fox's Raid. Yeah, I like that. Though this did not go unnoticed by Luffy or Boa, as she had woken up and began doing her usual work, as the Empress and Luffy had stars in his eyes. SOOCOOL. He kept shouting, which caused Naruto to hit him over the head. I just learned it now, shut up. He shouted comically towards Luffy, who just ended up laughing with a large bump on his head. Naruto then noticed Boa and gave her a wave with a small smile which in turn made her blush and hide from him and cause his eye to twitch. "Please don't go Hinata on my ass." He laughed as he jumped up towards the seats and slowly walked after her. "Hey, wait up!" Naruto yelled as he caught up with Boa, who was currently blushing like a cherry at the moment. "Damn it, why can I stop blushing when I see him? It's different with him than it was with Luffy. I feel so warm and I get butterflies in my stomach when I see him," she thought as she recomposed herself and looked at Naruto, who was currently looking at her as if she had caught a fever or something. "Hey, I forgot to ask Boa, but do you think I could stay here for a week with Luffy since I'm planning on meeting someone here?" He smiled at her. "Oh, of course you can. It'd be happy for you and Luffy-kun to stay here," she said while trying not to sound happy that Naruto would be staying on the island, which Naruto caught this time. "Oh, Tilda, could it be that you are happy that I am staying, Boa-chan?" He teased her, which caused her to blush so much it would put Hinata to shame. I don't know what you are talking about, Naruto-kun," she said, not realizing that she added the kun suffix. "Oh, Tilda, so it's Naruto-kun now, is it?" He teased more as he just chuckled and gave her a small hug. "Thanks, Boa, you're the best, Tilda," he laughed as he left the arena to continue on with his training. Time skip. Amazon Village docks 1 week later. Here we find Naruto in his usual attire with the cape like Shanks, however it had blue flames on the bottom, and he had his dark orange shorts, like Luffy's, but down past his knees, and a white buttoned-up shirt with the Uzumaki clan logo as well as the straw hat and red hair pirates logo on his shirt, and his usual black combat boots, as he slowly watched the Moby dock into Amazon Lily as Boa and Luffy's mouths were on the floor. Luffy because his brothers' captain's ship was a huge, and Boa because Naruto didn't tell her who was picking him up, and that she wasn't expecting it to be a legendary pirate. Over that past week, Naruto got to know his captain more, and eventually got used to his simple-minded nature as his soon-to-be captain. And he also spent a lot of time with Boa, as they both enjoyed their time with each other. They were both sad that they would be leaving each other. Not that they would admit it, but they got closer than simple friends could do, and much to the shock of Naruto and those around them, Boa leaned in and gave a small kiss to Naruto's cheek, and whispered in his ear, "I'll see you in the new world, Tilda," she said, which caused Naruto to control his blush and smile and nod towards her before she pulled away and ran behind one of her sisters. Then appeared Rayleigh, who had came to pick Luffy up, and gave Naruto a small drinking contest before they went, and much to the surprise of Rayleigh, he lost to Naruto due to Naruto not being affected by alcohol, and he waved bye to the two of them as he leaped up onto the Moby. "Hey, Naruto." An all-too-familiar voice was heard as he slowly looked over to where the sound had come from, and noticed that it was none other than Ace and Marco. However, there was a man that nearly made him stumble at the sheer power, as he did see him at the war, but he never got a good look at him. And it was none other than Edward Newgate, a.k.a. Whitebeard, one of the emperors of the sea. "Gura Gura Gura Gura, so you're the brat that saved my son from being killed by the marine dog," Whitebeard said in his usual gruff voice. This caused Naruto to tense slightly, however he was still going to act like himself. Yeah, old man, I saved Ace from getting his ass kicked. Besides, we became brothers ever since we are able to find each other due to our devil fruit similarities." Naruto chuckled, however he was surprised when the room went silent, and there were some gasps, and Whitebeard let out a gruff laugh towards Naruto. "Gura Gura Gura Gura, I won't be surprised if you were related to him, since you act similar to him. So Ace is going to be training you for 2 years. I can see that you have already been trained by Shanks due to the mark on your shirt," Whitebeard said as he slowly took a chug of his drink, as Naruto turned serious and nodded as Whitebeard continued, "Well, you better be prepared, brat, because I give much harsher training than your old teacher Redhead." He chuckled as Naruto laughed at what he called Shanks, as he nodded again and smirked. "Yeah, he said that you would say that, and I say bring it on," Naruto shouted as put his fist in his hand and gave of his old foxy grin, showing that he was prepared for whatever the Whitebeard pirates had planned for him. Whitebeard just smirked back at him and let out a mighty roar. "All right, brats, set sail." He shouted as Naruto walked to the edge of the ship and waved towards everyone and gave a small wink at Boa, who ended up blushing. Naruto smiled and looked up at the sky. "Bring it on," he shouted as his flames sparked from his hands. After saying their goodbyes to everyone, one Amazon Lily, Naruto met up with the rest of Whitebeard's crew. And now here we find Naruto, Ace, Marco standing in front of Whitebeard. Naruto currently had his arms folded without his arms in the sleeves. He grew a habit to stand like Whitebeard, and because that stance looks cool, Marco was in his usual Adar leaning against the mast, and Ace was sat down with his legs crossed with a shit-eating grin on his face at what Whitebeard was going to ask Naruto. "So Foxbrat, how would you like to join my crew?" Naruto let out a small smile grace his face as he looked up at Whitebeard. "Trust me when I say this. It would be an honor for me to join your crew, old man, but Roman IV already set my sights on making Luffy the Pirate King," Naruto said as he never took his eyes away from Whitebeard's own eyes. Then Whitebeard let out his infamous laugh as he looked down at them. "Gura gura gura gura, I understand, Foxbrat. And after this training that my sons are going to teach you, my training will be the hardest of all." At hearing this, Marco nearly fell overboard, and Aces nearly set the ship on fire, and Naruto was no longer serious. Instead, he was looking at Whitebeard with eyes as big as plates, and even Kurama was shocked in his mindscape. Naruto was standing next to Kurama, and Chiba Naruto began jumping around saying things like "yeah" and "so cool." However, they all eventually regained their composure as he coughed into his fist. "Thank you, I will gladly accept your offer to train under you all, and especially Toy Old Man. But there must be a reason that you in particular want to train me," Naruto stated as he smirked at the captain, who in return smirked back. "Simple, really. You have the same eyes I used to have when I was your age, and I can see a lot of myself in Shanks, and surprisingly even Roger and Blackbeard," Whitebeard said, which caused Ace to literally burn some of the ship and Marco to fall of the ship. This time, Naruto raised an eyebrow at the last two names, but just smirked and nodded to Whitebeard as he looked up at him. "I accept," he roared with excitement clear in his voice. He then looked at Whitebeard almost drooling. "When do I star?" He never got to finish his ace, and Marco began charging towards him with the intent to kill, which made Naruto smirk a bit and counter their attacks, and thus began Naruto's training. Whitebeard laughed a bit as he slowly turned around and began walking away towards the captain's dorm. Time skip 1 year. Whitebeard pirates the Naruto after 1 year of training, and 1 year to go. He stands as the mass of the Moby. He was currently taking a break from all of the training Whitebeard's crew have set him. Ace taught Naruto his strongest move, Flame Emperor, the giant ball of fire. Marco taught him how to manifest his devil fruit into an anime, in Naruto's case, a fox made entirely of fox fire, and the other devil fruit crew taught them so much that he was basically a living textbook on devil fruit moves. And now, he was currently preparing himself for Whitebeard's training, and to say he wasn't nervous would be a complete lie, because he was currently sweating bullets but also looked exited at the same time. Ace noticed this and couldn't help but nearly burst out laughing, which caused Naruto to give a glare at him. "What?" Naruto asked in a shaky voice as Ace stood back up. "Oh, nothing, you just seem a little tense." Ace laughed again as Naruto just snorted. "Anyone would be when you are about to be trained by an emperor of the sea, and I will have been trained by 2 of them by the end of the year," Naruto said with a slight shiver at remembering some of Shanks' training sessions with him. Ace couldn't help but chuckle and feel a bit jealous sympathy for Naruto that he was going to be trained by Whitebeard. Naruto and Ace both stiffened as they heard a gruff growl that sounded like "enter," which Naruto could only gulp and slowly walk into the captain's quarters, where Whitebeard stood at a large desk. And Whitebeard sat behind it staring at Naruto like he was looking into his very soul. Eventually Whitebeard just smiled. Not your average smile, but this one was sinister, which made Naruto regret accepting his training. But it was too late. "All right, brat, you have been here for a whole year training with all of my devil fruit users. Well, now you will be training 1 year with me in both Haki and Devil Fruit. Since Shanks never fully taught you everything about Haki, I will complete that. Whitebeard said with a smirk as he pulled out his polearm. However, he thrusted it forward like he was pointing it at Naruto. Whitebeard's polearm was coated in Haki, and it all seemed to go in slow motion from there as soon as Whitebeard thrusted his pole arm forward and said, Naginata Rezetsu. Naruto was blasted out of the captain's quarters and flew across the Mobi Naruto, then managed to flip himself round so he was upright and landed on the deck of the ship while sliding back a few meters and destroying some of the deck. Naruto then looked up to where the captain's quarters used to be and coughed up a bit of blood onto the floor. All of the Whitebeard pirates were looking at Naruto, then the big hole in the wall. Ace knew what attack Whitebeard had just used, and was surprised that he could withstand an Haki plus Devil Fruit attack, and be still standing after it. Beaming white eyes slowly peered out of the captain's quarters like a demon, as Whitebeard slowly emerged from the rubble, and smirked at Naruto. Well, brat, you just passed my test of being able to withstand that attack, Gura, so you better be prepared for the training you will be going through. Whitebeard said as Naruto just smirked back and wiped some of the blood away from his lips before thanks. Pops, Naruto said, which caused Whitebeard's eyes to widen ever so slightly at being called Pops for the first time by Naruto. He then smiled at the prone Naruto before him. Gura, someone get Naruto to the medical ward, Whitebeard said, while also saying Naruto's name instead of brat for the first time. Time skip 1 year Sabyati Archipelago. A lone figure could be seen walking along the streets of the gateway to Fishman Island. However, no one could see what he looked like as he had a cloak over his body and wrapped around his face, so you could only one of his sapphire eyes. He was walking. He noticed that there was a pub nearby, and he could sense one of the straw hats was inside. His blue eyes were now fixed on the entrance of the pub. As he slowly walked towards the pub, he could hear that it was quite loud and sounded like there was a brawl inside. Then he slowly entered, and everything went quiet as all eyes were now on the cloaked figure, and what looked like to be a fat fake Luffy was currently trying to flirt with Nami, who had changed a lot in the last 2 years and was wearing nothing but a bikini. Luckily, no one could see the cloaked man's face, or they would have seen a few bits of blood down his nose. He then kept walking until he was sitting at a stool next to Nami. She seemed to notice him and began to ignore the fake Luffy and turned towards the cloaked figure who was currently ordering ramen. Nami wondered if she knew anyone like that, but didn't seem to notice. Just as she was about to ask who he was, the fake Luffy shouted at her, "Hey babe, get your ass over here now. Don't you know who I am? I am Monkey. DLUFFY, son of Monkey. D Dragon and grandson of Monkey. DGARP. He shouted while giving everyone in the room a cocky smirk as he noticed all of them begin to tremble, all except for the 2 figures at the bar. He was about to continue his rant when they heard the door to the pub open again, and in stepped Usopp. He began walking towards the bar with a smirk. As he waved, he appeared on the stool next to her. "Or would you rather be with me?" he said in a gentleman kind of voice, which caused Nami to turn her attention to Usopp and smile. "USOPP. She yelled and hugged him while shoving his head in between her S and jumping up and down. The fake Luffy began to get annoyed and point at Usopp. "Oi, do you know WH?" He was cut off as Usopp fired something at him with his kabuto. What appeared to be a small seed landed in front of fake Luffy. "Ha ha ha ha, what is TH? He was cut off again as the seed transformed into some plant thing with testicles and picked the whole fake Straw Hat crew up and began throwing them round like rag dolls. Meanwhile, Nami decided to turn her attention to the cloaked figure again and realized that he was gone, and the only thing that was left was some berry on the counter and an empty bowl. Nami had a curious look in her eye before she turned her attention back to Usopp. "Come on, let's go to the Sunny," she said before standing up and walking out of the bar, although not before using an electrical storm to finish off the fake Straw Hat crew. Time skip half an hour back with the cloaked figure. The man was once again walking along the street After having an encounter with two of the Straw Hats, he now found himself on an open field covered in pirates from bounties going from 10,000 to 200 million, wanting to join some sort of Straw Hat crew. And he somehow found himself in the middle of it, while avoiding all of the pirates because of it being such a crammed place. He couldn't go anywhere, so he just stood there and looked up at the small cliff, and sweat dropped because there was the fake Luffy rambling on again about who he was and why they should fear him. The cloaked man looked over and noticed a pirate holding all of the Straw Hat crew's bounties. And just as Admiral said, which caused him to raise an eyebrow before turning his attention towards another figure who was standing on a cliff opposite to the one he was currently standing on, and he nearly burst out laughing at seeing Luffy with a glasses and mustache mask, and he was also carrying a huge back on his back. After a while of searching, one of the pacifists said, "Monkey D. Luffy bounty 400,000,000 target sighted," he said in a robotic voice, while another looked at the cloaked man, which in turn caused him to let out a sad sigh and brought out his arm and infused it with haki. All the while the pacifist said, "The Foxfire Sage bounty 410,000,000 target sighted." Naruto sighed as he gripped hold of the top of his cape and ripped it off, showing the new Naruto. He was now wearing a blue shirt with a sky blue flame pattern on his left sleeve. He also had a tattoo of Shanks' Jolly Roger on his left arm, and the Jolly Roger for white beard on his back like Ace's. His hair was slightly longer and still had the blue tips in his hair, and he also wore black shorts that went to his knees. And finally he had his cloak, which was similar to Shanks' cloak. Only Naruto's had a blue flame pattern in the center of the cape. The two pacifists fired beams at both Luffy and Naruto, while Luffy just leaned his head right and left to dodge the beams that ended up going straight past him. Naruto coated his arm in Busashoku Haki and flung his fist, hitting the light beam like a bat hitting a ball, sending it in another direction. And he did this with two other beams like he was batting away a fly. Of course, Naruto then disappeared and reappeared right next to Luffy, which caused Luffy to look at him for a moment. "Hey, little brother, been a while." Naruto smirks as lights his hand on fire with his infamous devil fruit. Luffy then notices the flames immediately and gives Naruto his huge smile. "Hey Naruto, it's been a while. I was just following Zoro, Sanji and Ch." He stopped talking as he noticed Naruto holding his chest while crying with laughter, while Naruto had just noticed where he was pointing and began laughing. "Ha ha ha, you ha ha ha. Few really can't tell what your own crew looks like." Luffy glared at Naruto and nodded. "Well, take a closer look at them then," he finished while wiping a few stray tears from his eyes, while Luffy did what he was told and began crying anime tears and kept repeating, "I'm sorry," over and over. But then Naruto put a hand on his shoulder. "Come on, let's go find your ship." Then just as they were about to leave, they heard the Vice Admiral, "Sorry, Straw Hat Foxfire, but you two are not leaving here and I'm taking you in," he said while pointing his large axe at the two. "PX5 and PX4, capture them," he shouted as the two pacifists walked towards them, while all of the other pirates tried to run away, but realized they were surrounded. Naruto then did something that no one expected. He pulled out a miniature version of Whitebeard's polearm and set the whole thing on fire with his devil fruit, which caused Luffy to have stars in his eyes while shouting, "Cool." He then said, "Yo yo, no flame slash," and swung his polearm downwards, creating a large beam, wiping out most of the pirates. All except one pacifista, who was not damaged due to just arriving, and the Vice Admiral was coughing up bits of blood while his axe was in pieces on the floor. "Come on Luffy, let's go," Naruto said as he began running with a nearly passed out Luffy, who was foaming from how cool that was. Then the final pacifista appeared behind them with his arms aimed at them, and his mouth open. Naruto and Luffy both ignored the robot. Then in front of them appeared Zoro and Sanji. Great Dragon Shock. Zoro shouted and sliced his head, while at the same time Sanji lit his leg on fire. Diable Jam, he shouts, and delivered one kick to the pacifista's neck. After they both then began to argue about who killed the pacifista first. "Shut up, Moss Head, I broke his neck," Sanji shouted while glaring daggers at his rival, while Zoro glared back. "No way Iroquois cut his head off." He shouted back, which caused Luffy to laugh and Naruto to laugh and sweat drop at the same time. While they were running, Luffy suddenly stopped and turned his attention to a lone figure standing on top of a hill facing the four pirates. Luffy then raised both his arms in the air and clenched them into fists. Rayleigh. Luffy shouted, which made Naruto, Zoro, and Sanji smirk at Luffy. Rayleigh looked at Luffy with a smile as a small tear went down his face, but he quickly whipped it away. "I am gonna do it." Luffy shouted again, "I am gonna find the One Piece and become the king of the pirates." He shouted with pride and confidence in his voice. Then Luffy laughed again and began running again with his three crew mates in tow. As the four Straw Hats were leaving, there were Marines chasing after them, not to fat behind, although this did not go unnoticed by Rayleigh, so he made a huge cut in the ground in front of all of the Marines, which caused them all to stop in their tracks and look at Rayleigh, while one of the Vice Admirals shouted, "It's the Dark King Rayleigh." He shouted and began to back up again. While Naruto was currently running with his crew on the inside, he was talking with Kurama about some of the abilities he should use. However, before he could ask, he was currently knocked out of his conversation by Zoro, who was nudging him, because Luffy was trying to get his attention. "What is it, Luffy?" he asked his captain while he just smiled. "We have reached the Sunny," Luffy said as Naruto looked up at the Sunny for the first time and smiled, while also wondering what happened to their last ship. As Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji stepped on the ship, Naruto followed close behind them. He noticed that there were two new crew mates from when he last met the crew bit. He also heard that there was one they were still waiting for. The Thousand Sunny. On the deck of the ship, everyone was currently looking at Naruto with suspicious eyes. Not that he could blame them, so he decided to sit on the edge of the mast. "Okay, so I can see that most of you don't feel comfortable with me being here, so if you have any questions, then fire away," Naruto said with a smile, which caused two of the female pirates to blush a bit. The first one to step forward was the Raku reindeer. "I am Tony Chopper. I am also the doctor of the crew. Luffy told us that you would be new after the 2-year skip, but we never got to meet because I wasn't in the crew at the time." Naruto smiled at the name Chopper and said, "Well, Chopper, I'll be counting on you to heal me in the future anyways. For those of you that don't know you, I am Naruto D. Uzumaki." The D was added when he became brothers with Ace. "Luffy and Sabo, and I am Luffy's big brother." He laughed as Luffy glared at him, while all of the crew looked at Naruto and Luffy in shock. "What?" Luffy asked innocently. "I thought you only had one brother, Luffy-kun," Robin says, but Luffy just gives a sad smile. "Well, actually I have 4, Luffy said, which caused everyone to be once more shocked. But before they could ask Luffy who the 4th was, Naruto stepped in. "Hey, I don't think Luffy wants to go there," Naruto said as he noticed Luffy getting a bit more wary. After Luffy managed to calm down from the sad memories, Naruto continued, "Now on with the questions. Anyone want to ask me?" Naruto said as Zoro came forward. "What is your bounty now? Since last time we met your bounty was 330 million biri." Zoro said, which caused Usopp and Chopper's eyes to go wide and Naruto to smirk and pull out a poster of himself. Then Zoro read out, "The Foxfire Sage, Naruto D. Uzumaki. Wanted dead of alive, 410 million biri. Info: it is unknown what crew he is part of, however he does have 3 Jolly Rogers. One is red-haired Shanks, another is the White-Beard Pirates, and finally he has Straw Hats. He has all of these Jolly Roger tattoos over his body. Only come in contact with this man if you are an High Vice Admiral or higher." Zoro finished with wide eyes at realizing that Naruto still had a higher bounty than Luffy, even if it was only by 10 million. It was still a shock to the whole crew on the ship. Naruto just gave a comical blush. "What?" he asked innocently, while the whole crew's sweat dropped a bit. "Why do you have a tattoo of Shanks and White Beard?" Robin asked out of curiosity, while Naruto just smirked. "Well, I am a part of their crew, and I was trained by Whitebeard in the 2-year training that you all had. I was training too. Naruto Whitebeard's name with pride, while the others were currently shocked. Frankie shook his head. Hey, there is something you all need to know that is super important, he said to himself while Luffy, Usopp and Chopper thought he was going to show them something new that would be cool, but then he got serious. When I was arriving at the Sunny, there was someone already there. Bartholomew Kuma. But he was a pacifista, but he was seriously damaged, and when he was about to go he said, and I quote, "Mission complete, protect Straw Hat Ship until return." And that was what he said before leaving. Frankie finished off, then Luffy said, well, since he protected the Sunny, I guess he was an alright guy. Shishishishi. He laughed before Frankie said, yeah, he was superrrr. But remember, the next time we meet him, he will be nothing but a mindless robot with no emotions, Frankie said, which caused everyone to nod along. Then Naruto did some head seals and out popped Kurama in his chibi form, who was now resting on Naruto's shoulder. Hey guys, you probably know Kurama, my partner, best friend, family, Naruto said, which caused them all to nod and Chopper to ask, did he eat a devil fruit like mine? He asked, but Naruto just smiled and shook his head. Nope, he's the great Kyuubi no Yauki, Naruto said, which caused Kurama to suck in all of the praise but noticed Chopper back away. Then Kurama said with a small sweat drop, just because I am a demon doesn't mean I am going to hurt you, Chopper, Kurama said with a small laugh, which caused some of the crew to less tense. Then the whole crew began to hear something. Yo ho 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 ho. They heard, then Usopp and Chopper said, it's Brook. They shouted as they noticed the flying fish glide over the ship, and down dropped a skeleton. Yo ho 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 ho, dead bone. Brooks is back, baby, he said while playing his guitar. Then Luffy said, okay, so everyone is here, so let's set sail for Fishman Island, he shouted. Then out of nowhere Sanji and Kurama said, and to meet all the mermaids. They finished off before the ship began to sink, much to the horror of Naruto and Kurama, who immediately began to get scared. Then Nami asked, what's wrong with those two? She asked, but the rest of the crew just shrugged as they heard Naruto say, no tilde, not underwater anything but that tilde, he said over and over again. The Thousand Sunny, underwater. After a few hours, Naruto and Kurama managed to get used to it with a little thanks from Chopper, but they still ended up getting a bit nervous from time to time due to having a fear of being underwater. By then, Naruto had been going round talking with the other crew so that they wouldn't be too cautious around him. And Kurama Naruto then noticed that the further down they got, the darker, the bigger the fish. And it also began to get a lot colder, but it didn't really affect him since he was basically a bonfire when he wanted to be. Then him, Luffy, and Zoro looked at each other and smirked. Hey, I bet I could catch all of those fish with my Gamu Gamu no Gatling, Luffy said confidently. Then Naruto said, PFFFT, I could catch them and roast them at the same time, he said with a smirk. Then Zoro said, I could catch more than the both of you, he said as the three of them were about to begin the contest. Usopp and Chopper hit them all over the head. Are you three stupid? If you do that, then you will end up popping the balloon, Usopp shouted. Yeah, do that again and it'll kill you, Chopper said while they both began to cry anime tears. A few minuets later, Naruto was talking to Nami about the coding of the ship, which caused him to go into a daydream, not understanding a word. She was talking about he was then hit in the ribs by Nami's elbow. Hey, are you listening? She shouted to everyone. Then they looked over the mast. Then Brook shouted, Gankashan. And Luffy, Zoro, Chopper, Usopp, and Naruto took a sip out of their tea and said in unison, a bubble on an underwater current, they said, which caused Sanji and Nami to sweat drop. And Yamaisichin, I have some ram. He wasn't able to finish as he noticed that the bowl of ramen he was going to give Nami was empty. Then he heard a loud burp and saw Naruto lying down. Sanji, you make great ramen tilde, Naruto said with a happy sigh while Sanji got a large tick mark. That was for and Yamaisichin. He shouted before looking at Nami's S and being blown back by a nosebleed, which of course caused Chopper to scream, Sanji. After a few more hours of sailing downwards, They didn't notice the other ship that was hot on their trail. However, Usopp decided to do some scouting with his scope. "Hey guys, I think there is a large fish." "He no wait, it's another ship, and it's heading straight for us," Usopp shouted, which caused the others to get red for a fight. Except for Naruto, who was currently chatting to Robin about his godfather's books. After a few more minuets, the ship caught up and ended up boarding the Sunny. They noticed that the guy leading the crew, which they believed was the captain, as they remembered his name was Caribou, and he was also a devil fruit user, as he ate the Numa Numa no Mai muck muck fruit. After a while of wondering who it was, they then didn't bother putting up a fight with him, as he was far too weak with a bounty of only 210 million buri. Then, as the captain jumped on the ship, Naruto stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. He Roman 4 been needing to let off some steam. Naruto smirked with a sadistic grin on his face, but before he could get his work out, Luffy looked at the cow fish. "Hey, I know you're that cow thing we saw at Arlong Park," Nami said, which got the cowfish's attention. Then Luffy said, "Oh yeah, I remember him," which caused the cowfish to look at him and Sanji before taking off with the ship. Due to it being forced to carry the ship, this went unnoticed by Caribou, who kept saying, "Fire the Gatling," over and over again, until he realized that there was no one there, which caused Naruto to walk over to him. No blazing prison," he said calmly, as a blue flame cell dropped on top of Caribou. "Now that is taken care of." Can W. He wasn't able to finish, as he noticed the ship come back with a badly beaten sea cow, but before they could dock with the Sunny again, a giant tentacle wrapped around the ship and crushed the bubble and the ship, leaving a shocked crew. A few minuets later, Usopp and Chopper looked over the side of the ship and began sweating before they both shouted, "The Kraken." That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments.